And we are coming down in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Getting Sports or Drunk. I'm your host, Cupcake the Riddler, and I'm joined by
Mark.
Sheen Washable.
Nope.
Seneca Paxton.
Don't care for that.
Chris Massey.
And the Rat of a Red Baron. I must hit the water. Or did I just fly off into the sunset? That can't be true.
Sunset.
Wow.
That was a crash. They left from
That was
LaGuardia.
like a Wile E. Coyote.
Welcome to the show. We're almost at full staff, but someone wasn't feeling well. They can't see you.
For radio listeners.
For all the deaf listeners out there, it tickled Rebecca's fancy.
Fancy feast.
I get it, because you can talk about a feline.
Whoa!
Whoa! Starting lineups. Massey, what are you drinking?
Ginger ale.
What kind?
Nice.
Actually, we would like the brand.
Dry.
Oh, nice.
He's
The
going to
name
make
of
a
our-
Moscow Mule out of that.
That's the name of our group chat.
Yeah. Real quick, does anybody have any toast of excellence before we get into the rest of the starting lineup? We don't have to do them. You don't have them, you don't have them. It's
I
fine.
forgot.
I have one for Santana Moss.
All right, so what is it? It's just for Santana Moss. Just like the guy.
He's 41 today. Hold on, I actually wrote this down earlier today.
Well, mine's the Lavernius Coles.
Mine's the Tom Holland. Turned 24 today. Worst Spider-Man ever. False.
Santana Moss, 41 years old today. Played for 13 years, amassed 10,000 receiving yards and 66 touchdowns.
So, Kyle, why was
Only
yours?
made the Pro Bowl once.
Why was yours Lavernius Coles?
Because they were traded for one another.
I have a toast.
Toast it.
I don't know if you guys saw the video of J.R. Smith.
Yes.
There was one of the protests going on. Someone was trying to mess up his, I don't know if his car, his truck, whatever. And he came out and just beat the shit out of this guy. So good on you.
John Jones is like the same thing.
Well, John Jones just kind of came out and was like, hey, don't do that here. I'm a world-class UFC fighter, and you'll die.
Did anybody listen to him?
I think they left his stuff alone.
That's probably the smart choice.
Because he's not only like a UFC champion, but he's also like a known like cokehead. So you catch him at the wrong time, man. That's just a strong guy with a lot of energy.
He's going to let you know about it.
Kind of run circles around you.
Which he's going to do that anyway.
They're going to call boy Greg Hardy.
Matt and Jeff's cousin.
So that's that it?
That's it.
All right, so we're all drinking Super Duper Double Super Duper Triple Citra, the new triple IPA in the Super Duper Double line, Kyle's favorite. It's from Thomas Hooker Brewing in Bloomfield, and that's it. I just want to drink it. So.
Cracking.
I wish it was colder.
Good.
Do we do beer reviews now?
Yeah, Kendall.
Yeah.
I'm just
Machina
saying.
made eye contact, but that was more for erection purposes.
It's like, you too?
Yeah, well, my eyesight's not that good. And I can't talk.
Ooh, Kendall just said the beer wasn't that good. Wow.
What?
Shocker.
You're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Pull
I said
yours
my
out.
eyesight is not that
All
good.
right, so the beer review from the Rat, the triple Citra, not that good, doesn't like triple IPAs or high
You just
percent
wait
beers.
till my review.
You already gave it, so we're going to skip you when it comes to the beer reviews.
I'm going to plagiarize.
What?
What?
So you're going to
All right.
steal one of ours?
Oh, yeah.
What a dumbass you are. You fucking idiot. What a moron.
Yes.
All right, so Massey,
Yo.
why don't you go ahead and tell us?
What am I telling you?
I'm curious to see how he's going to present his part of the segment.
I thought he was going to say phallus. I'd like to see And there it is. Kendall, show us yours. Kyle? Do you remember yours?
I think it was like this.
I don't remember mine.
I think it was something with two hands.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about our hand penises.
Mask, show us.
Inside joke for the listeners.
Show us your hand penis.
Just use your imagination.
No, hold it up so we can see it. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Missing a nub.
Got good cuticles though. Good on him.
I've never seen that's like a rare breed. The double dose dick, one thick, one slim.
You got the shocker dick.
That's what it was.
Yeah, the real shocker is when he jams them both in one.
I feel like you had that upside down though.
It's like a
Probably.
When you tried
You
to go in the sink, you
switched the
could have get
switch.
it in there.
Can I make a new one?
Sure.
oh wow, from both ends.
There you go.
It hurts because when you do like pretty much no matter what position you're in, you're sitting on one.
Yeah.
Or it's just flapping around in the wind like a
You
mud.
gotta hang off like the couch or something.
Yeah, like a mud flap.
Like a
We gotta move on.
keep the dust out of there.
We gotta move on.
We've been live for less than 6 minutes.
The problem is it's really rough when you're just standing up with no underwear on because it's kind of have like an archway thing going on.
This is really hard for me to imagine what Paul's actually talking about right now.
Oh yeah, because you can't see it, can you? I did that thing where you have one hand upside down and the other hand right side up, and you wiggle the fingers. Yeah.
I'll try to show you, but I can't do that.
No way you can't do it.
Try it.
That can't be real.
It's pretty much real.
I also.
I wouldn't fake it.
Could you ever do
Go like this.
Could you ever do the church and the steeple show all the people thing?
Not really. I
close
got
your
like my
middle
own version.
Just
Yeah,
it's,
and then
this is
turn
the
your
church. This is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people.
Here's all the people.
That's not my middle finger. It's my index.
That's not your index finger, for
My
one.
middle finger, anyway.
That's your secondary middle finger.
Is that loud for anybody else?
It was loud.
Let's see what you got going over there, Kyle.
I don't understand this at all.
I know Kyle and Kendall are just like
I don't got working fingers.
Rebecca's trying so hard to figure out the steeple thing.
Kendall, real quick, just put your hands together. Now close your middle fingers. Only your middle fingers.
I'm trying hard.
And then you just turn your hand.
Those are your middle fingers. That's your ring finger.
Yeah, do you and Kyle not know what the middle fingers
Well,
are?
no, it's just the inability to use them.
No, just imagine you're driving your car, and Kendall just broke 3 fingers.
Yeah, the hands came apart.
You guys are helpless.
Hands came apart. Oh boy.
There's got to be a class.
We're gonna have to make like a Instagram video on this before we leave tonight.
It's like geometry.
Yeah, it is.
Turn your hand.
Really shitty geometry.
Oh my god.
No, some people.
How long do you think until Rebecca starts salivating? Like she's just like, nah, can't figure it out. So, Souls, go ahead.
Yeah.
What you got?
So today we're doing in a segment called.
In a segment? We're doing in a segment.
That's right. We're also doing.
An assessment and a segment. Together, they make a segment.
Anyways.
So we came up with this rebuild segment because it's a very popular topic in the sports world, and so we broke it down into the phases. So there's phase 1, which is the beginning of the rebuild. Phase 2, the meat of the rebuild. Phase 3, finishing out the rebuild. So you're not done with it, but you're wrapping it up, putting a little bow on it. Then there's the teams that constantly rebuild, which is not a good thing. And then there's the tune-up teams, which are teams that just need to kind of do a little bit of work here and there. They haven't really had a need to go into a rebuild in some time due to whatever circumstances. And so we assigned each one of those categories to a member of the show. Mass did the beginning, Mock the middle, Kyle the end. Kendall did the tune-ups, and I did the constant rebuild portion of it. And we picked a team from each major sport for our category. So we're going to kind of go like in lineage through the sport. So we're going to go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Then we're going to do the constant rebuild and tune-up thing at the end. And so we'll pick one sport, we'll go through the line with it, and then we'll go on from there.
All right, hold on. I gotta pull up the actual part of the second.
You know, I don't know. There's just a big part of me that just Mash just like threw up right on the camera.
Matt, are you a violent throw upper?
Yes.
Nice. Me too.
I'd like to have a competition. Mass versus Souls.
You pick the parking lot. We'll bring the garbage can.
If you're in a parking lot, why do you need a garbage can?
Something to capture it in. You gotta measure. How are you gonna measure it?
By orange. thickness.
Diameter.
By orange thickness. He said.
Diameter. We need force.
All right, bring your own buckets.
All
Hold
right.
on. Google's taking a little while to load.
Mm.
Talk about stuff in the meantime.
Need a new Adobe Acrobat.
Yeah.
The free trial is over.
You're going to want to ramp up your internet connection.
It's that
I
Mozilla
have
Firefox.
300 megs.
Yep. Seems like you could use another 50. Tell you, that light's really bright on your face.
Is it where he lives is darker? Or... I can't look out the window and tell.
Oh,
Oh, no CM Punk's back.
Been waiting for years to hear that music again. That's the day that Mock moved back to wrestling.
yeah. It's pretty much what I'm holding out for.
Missing out on some decent stuff.
He's not.
Am I really?
Eh.
Rebecca's shaking her head because what? Seth
We'll
Rollins
start
is
with
there?
the NFL because I at least remember that my rebuilding team is the Dolphins. I remember that much.
Dolphins.
I think we're gonna see this team a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sure, hold on. I'm just
What
gonna.
do you mean we're going to see this team a lot?
I just think we're gonna talk about them a lot.
How?
What do you mean?
You think they're also? You think someone also picked them for the middle of the rebuild and the finish of the rebuild?
Maybe.
You really did this wrong, huh?
So Dolphins finished off last year at 5-11. Their longest win streak was a win streak of 2, which I think was right at the end of the season. I mean, we saw it this year. I think they had 13 or 14 draft picks. And they have ammo for the next 2 years that they're going off on this for as well. This year they picked up 3 linemen, their quarterback of the future. I think they picked up a cornerback as well in the first round from Auburn.
Say the
Next
name,
year,
Mass. Say the name.
I'm not even gonna. I know it's Noah something. Thank you.
Don't quote him on that.
I wouldn't exactly call them coming off success in recent years, but it looks like they're starting to build towards that. And I would say that they're probably going to be relatively close to competition in the next 2 years.
Oh, is that it? You're just done? Nothing. No. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I just thought he was like leading into something else with it, and then nobody else said anything. So I was like, "Oh, Paul, you should say something."
That's the end of that.
All right. Does anybody have anything to add to it, or have a? I guess we don't have to do the whole like if you have a team that fits it better kind of thing. Like, does anybody disagree with it? Does anyone think they don't belong in this phase?
I kind of think they belong in phase 2.
That's where I put them. Because they were one of my teams.
That explains why you look. What?
So, as I told you, I did the assignment incorrectly.
Did you only do football?
No.
Oh.
I have a baseball team.
One?
Yeah.
So Mock thought those little bullet points that I put for like ideas to go off of, he thought you were supposed to pick a team that fit that
I did a
bullet
team for
point.
each of those.
Originally, I called Kyle. I was going to do a team for 4 teams for each of those bullet points. And he did.
God.
And I had started, and then he told me,
So
no.
did nobody read the directions?
Well, I just don't think we're that smart.
Well, you know what happened? I read it, and I was like, oh, I knew I have to do this. And then, I did it today while I was at work, and I read through the instructions again quickly, but not really accurately.
Okay, You guys are silly.
I can agree with the mess that the Dolphins are in the beginning stages. So I feel like they've kind of been in the beginning stage now for like 3 seasons, and they kind of just keep redoing their same season over and over. So I can agree with the points he's bringing up, but you guys tend to put them in the second stage of that. Care to elaborate?
I only put them in the second stage for what they did this off season. They went out and actually they spent money on possibly the number 1 corner in football. They got a running back. They got a lot of different weapons, so it built their team up for this year. You know what I'm saying?
Who did they get for running back?
Jordan Howard.
Ah, that's right.
And they also traded for Matt Breida.
Yeah.
So I kind of think like they're going toward the maybe wild card situation or around it.
Okay.
I put them in the phase 2 because to me, like you just said, I mean, I think they jump started what they thought was going to be a slower rebuild, and then they kicked it up knowing that Brady's gone and the division's a little more open now.
See, I understand, but they're not beating Buffalo for the division.
No.
I don't see them. I don't see them being good enough to get at one of the 3 wild card spots.
I don't think it's this year. I agree with Mass where they may be 2 years away, but I mean that could very well change next season if Tua comes back and is strong. I mean, he'll have a decent supporting cast around him.
No,
to where they can compete.
Nothing on the other side of the ball though.
So, Paul, do you have a criteria which you kind of wanted for the phase 1 up? It's kind of what we're.
No, that wasn't a criteria.
Well, no, just so.
It was more of a guideline.
Yeah, that's
Right.
all it was. So we don't like. It was just like a. What do you mean by phase 1 beginning of rebuild type of deal? Like, what do you think that means type of thing? That's all it was.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know if you wanted to read the.
No, I don't.
points. Oh.
I don't want to do that. So the thing I thought wouldn't happen happened right out of the fucking gate. 2 people picked the same team. So we should probably elaborate a little bit more on this phase 2 thing. Those Miami Dolphins, let's talk about them.
So
You kind of went into it a little bit, but keep going. You got some deets as to reasons why, besides your bullet point.
So I had them in this phase 2, because
You're a dirty bastard.
well, no, I mean last year we saw they traded away top guys to amass more picks. I mean they traded away Tunsil and Kenny Stills to Houston. That brought them back at least 2 first rounders. I know there was more, but then the Fitzpatrick trade with the Steelers got him another first rounder.
So I see what you're saying, Kendall. I apologize. So the phase 2, the bullet points I gave like towards a guideline was that to be in the phase 2, the meat and potatoes of the rebuild are that you promising young talent around you. You're starting to achieve some minor success, not necessarily playoffs, but like you're climbing up every year or so in record. You're beating division opponents you wouldn't beat before. You occasionally bring in like a high profile free agent or something or an impactful player. You maintain your draft stock to continue the rebuild, keep it going, but you keep getting better every step of the way. So those are the bullet points. I see what you meant. You're still a dirty fucking rat.
I know.
You were a sewer rat.
Oh God, that hurts me.
Muskrat.
No, you're a womp rat.
Or a naked mole rat.
I don't want to be that.
You are that. No, he's that.
I want to be.
He's the Kim Possible naked mole rat.
Rufus.
Yeah.
Do.
Who would be the blonde guy that he hangs out with, though?
Jeff.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Rebecca.
That's so funny. You're her pet.
I don't want to be this cuckold rat here. This situation is.
Oh,
no
that's so
longer fun
perfect.
for
That's
me.
what it is. You're the naked mole rat that she consoles while she tries to bang a redhead. Shannon.
I've come full circle here.
Or Kim Krizak.
Ooh, more names people don't know.
Well, I mean, hey, you being the naked mole rat, it went from worse to better for you, so.
This is true. More tolerable.
All right, just keep it going. Go ahead, Monk.
So yeah, they picked up a lot of early draft picks both for this season and next season. I think the guys they drafted this year can be, other than Tua, but our day one starters. They weren't very good last year, but it was also a team that never quit. I mean, even down, but like they still played through every game. even as everyone was asking them if they were tanking, and I agree that they're 2-3 years away, but the AFC East, I mean, if the Bills fall off, it's wide open. So I think they're going to try and jumpstart that rebuild faster than they probably anticipated to get going.
So I'm trying to think of a team that's kind of like a step ahead of what Miami's at right now.
Oh, would it be the Cleveland Browns?
Well, it's funny. I would almost. The Browns are in a weird position. They're like ahead of that.
So what are you trying to do? Think of phase 3?
No, I was going to try to dispute phase 2.
Well, I think a good phase 2 team would be Carolina. A team that offensively they're there, but defensively they're very far away. Like, because on offensive side of the ball, they have an elite running back. They have four good receivers, or 3 good receivers. What?
Who are they?
Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Curtis.
DJ
Samuel.
Moore's all right.
Like, they're guys that are going to fit what Teddy Bridgewater does. I think on the offensive side of the ball, they'll be able to put up points better than they were at least last year. But defense, they took a big hit, and all their guys left, and they're rebuilding that side. So I think they're in the middle because their defense sucks. So will suck.
You all right over there?
Get the hiccup.
All right, so do you guys want to move on to phase 3 for the NFL?
Yes.
All right. Got phase 3 here, folks. And my phase 3 team is the Buffalo Bills.
Phase 3 souls.
In 2017 and 2018 season, they went 9-7. They made the wild card game, but they lost to the Jaguars in a very low-scoring game.
Worst playoff game.
It was sad.
2018-2019 season, they went 6-10. Obviously, they missed the playoffs. In 2019-2020, they went 10-6, where they made the wild card and lost to the Texans. So in the offseason of the 2017 and 2018 season, the Bills went out. They signed John Brown. They signed Cole Beasley. And they drafted Devin Singletary. So at that point, they were putting pieces around Josh Allen. So that helped them because they went 10-6. They were pretty much a lock in the wild card since day one. And then this year, they went out and they traded for Stephon Diggs. They drafted another running back. And they drafted 2 receivers, Gabe Davis and Isaiah Hodgins. So now it's more of a complete offense. They have a quote-unquote power running back to go with Devin Singletary and Frank Gore left. Now they have what they think is number 1. They have the slot guy. They have the deep guy. They put pieces around what will help Josh Allen be successful.
Sexy.
Cut it out.
I love the way that Kyle just subtly went. They have what they think is the number 1 right.
I caught that too.
Well, a lot of people don't see him as number 1. So, I don't want to cause any controversy.
I think you caused more of a controversy by saying what you said.
Well, am I wrong?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yes, I believe that you are.
You
Well,
posed a
he hasn't been
question that
number
has
one
no
yet,
answer.
so we don't know. But so on the defensive side of the ball, last year they had 14 interceptions and 44 sacks. They were the 3rd-ranked defense in the NFL, 10th against the run, 3rd against the pass. So they're already very good on that side of the ball. Their biggest weakness was rush defense, but this year they went out and they signed Mario Addison, and they got a few other guys from the fucking Panthers defensive line. I don't know why they chose them, but they did. So they got depth at defensive line now. They got a good starter, Mario Addison. And they went out and they got depth at the cornerback position with Josh Norman and E.J. Gaines. So I think with all
EJ Gage is still playing.
Yeah. I just said his name.
Good for him.
Dick. Sorry. But I think that with all these moves, the Bills are poised to make a run this year, next year, while they may believe that they probably don't think the Patriots are done, but they're definitely not the team that they once that they were last year and the years prior. So they think the division's theirs now. So they went for all the marbles this year. I think.
All
I
right.
think it's a good pick for that team that's kind of trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I
like
mean, a lot of times we see these rebuilds that don't happen. You know, they start and then teams ban, and
Yeah, it's a flash
Buffalo's
in the
been
pan.
getting it right the last few years.
The only thing they need to worry about is Josh Allen trying to hurdle people.
And how he should not be doing that.
I tell you, I don't think that anyone listening can see Massey, but I don't think he's going to make it. Like, he might need medical attention.
You use a glass of water, that guy. Goes a long way.
Drink some grape, dude. I'll help you right up.
Oh, there you go.
Somebody bring me some.
I tell you what, the Graves probably would kill whatever you got going on.
Kendall, bring it to me.
It'll dry you out good.
Get you good and dry.
So a team that's been like on the cup of like wild card, and then year after they missed the playoff for 6 and 10, and they made the wild card again. I think now they're there.
Yeah. So is a team like Arizona too much of a stretch to say to put them in a spot like a 3?
I think they're a phase 2 still,
Okay.
because I think they're still too young. Besides, like
Not only are they too young, they don't have a lot of capital going into the next couple of years. And while they may have just gotten rid of David Johnson's absurd contract, they just took on a more exorbitant one in DeAndre Hopkins.
yeah, he might not be bad for them.
Well, I'm wondering if a guy like this.
I don't think he'll be bad for them. They just took on a larger contract than the David Johnson one they got away with.
It's also tough because I think like the Cardinals, like Patrick Peterson getting up there in age. And I don't really know if they addressed the cornerback position this year.
Is Patrick Peterson a Hall of Famer?
I don't know.
Without looking at numbers, that's tough to tell. He's good. Household name, for sure.
Good now.
You got any?
What?
Got anything to say about it?
I like the Bills. To go on. They're probably like the closest. I think the Bears are there in that category. Just the hardest position to get away. And then
Oh, I guess you could put the Colts in there too.
I don't think you can because they only have a short answer option for quarterback right now, and I mean, no, the defense is getting better and the offensive line is great, but I mean everything else on the offensive side of the ball is a giant question mark because T.Y. Hilton can't stay healthy.
Hey, you think Andrew Luck's super bummed that they waited till he retired to get a good offensive line?
Well, no, they had a good offensive line when he retired.
For his last year.
But
They were
but by
decent.
then, that man was already just battered.
Because didn't they not give up a sack in it was 4 or 5 games?
They had some stretch that was pretty crazy.
Was it pretty crazy?
I guess.
You ever just want to punch Kendall in the mouth?
I kind of mentioned them before, but a team to me that's like between 2 and 3 would be Cleveland, because there's a lot of talent on that team. Except every year they're like, hey, let's take all the coaches and fire all of them. Get a whole new regime in here. It's hard to develop talent that way.
Well, so it's a good segue because I think that means that the Browns, they don't fit 2 or 3 and they fit constant rebuild. They're on the lower side of it because their constant rebuild never works at all for any form of success. But like you said, it's always just a whole new turnover. They probably have one of the highest roster turnovers in the NFL. They got to have the highest head coach turnover in the NFL over the past 20 years.
But they've got to.
But because of the lack of success, not the team I chose. The team I chose to go with was the Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh.
Since 2000, they've had 5 head coaches, which is not a super amount, but it's one every 4 years. It's essentially you sign a coach, you let him, he finishes out his contract, and you say, nah, next one. Now, granted, there was that the first 2 years was the end of Green. There were guys that coached longer, shorter, but in those 20 years, they had 5 first place finishes division wise, 9 seconds, 2/3, and 3/4. And for the constant rebuild, one of the bullet points that I put in for constant rebuild was that they're often middle/low ranked teams. Well, there you go. 11 of them were right in the middle. Inconsistent coach in front office. When you're averaging a coach every 4 years, I think that could qualify as an inconsistent coaching staff. Mix of success and failure in both draft and free agent. They've taken a lot of whiffs in the draft, but they've also had a lot of home runs. I mean, Dalvin Cook was great, Thielen, Diggs, but they've also whiffed on guys.
Matt Asiata.
On both, and releases and all kinds of stuff too. I mean, high turnover on roster. This one was a little different because they're definitely more of a homegrown team now, but that wasn't always the case. They did try to splash with free agents in the early 2000s and 2010s. They tried, with the Brett Favre acquisition. They move guys around. They brought in different receivers
McNabb?
here. Huh?
Didn't McNabb go out there?
Yeah.
At the end, but it was like a real
Yeah.
short-lived thing.
Culpepper was the more.
I remember Culpepper.
He was the dude.
Christian Ponder.
But they've bounced around with guys offensively and defensively. So not the highest turnover roster, but there's movement. And then I put these two, which I thought were really good points for the constant rebuild. You're usually surrounded by a lot of phase 1 and phase 3, which phase 1 was the beginning of the rebuilds, and phase 3, which is why you have that constant success. The NFC North is really, it's been the Packers for the most part, but there's been a rotating door where the Vikings have their time, the Bears had their time, and Green Bay kind of stays consistent. And the Lions are one of those teams that is the opposite of the tune-up. They're the constant, just doesn't. They're the beater car. They're the $2,000 car with no transmission that you didn't look at to see if it was there.
Still rolling down the window.
Hey, drive's not working.
Throw it in neutral. Flintstone it. But I mean, the Vikings are one of those teams that they've been able to contend for so long because during this 2000 to 2020 stretch, there were some years where the Bears were really bad, and so it allowed the Vikings to go in and do that finish in that 2-seed area and sneak in wild cards. And then another bullet point that I came up with in my head for this while I was doing it was also, I think if you're a constant rebuild, you have a mix of success and failure in terms of seasons. So in 20 years, they've had 8 playoff appearances. 3 of them resulted in conference finals appearances, 1 division appearance, or one loss in the divisional round, and then 3 wild card losses. So it's like that team that's like they're in that constant rebuild. They're always looking to take that next step. It's like they're stuck in phase 3, like they just can never do it. And then the final bullet point I put for it was you when you see that constant rebuild team, you see a team that tends to consistently add to their strengths and not their weaknesses, which is why they don't take that next step. Which for a long time, really, this team, to me, like when I first thought of it, was the Chargers. But I felt like the Chargers were too good for a while. Like the constant rebuild thing is only like a very recent thing. And for constant rebuild, I feel like the phases 1, 2, and 3. You look back 3 years, 4 years. Constant rebuild, tune up, the one that Kendall and I are doing. You're looking back 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be a pattern.
I think you hit it right on the head because there's been some really good Vikings teams that they made moves in off season. Like the Brett Favre example was huge. I mean, for 2 seasons or whatever. I don't know how long he was there.
I think he was only there 2 seasons, right?
I mean, one of those years he had statistically his best year ever.
Yeah.
And
and so like that's my thing is like with the adds to the strength not weaknesses thing. When I wrote that down, I was thinking in the aspect of like, okay, this team has the 20th ranked defense, but the 2nd ranked offense, and they tend to always the impact guys that they get, whether it's through the draft or free agency, tend to help the offensive side of the ball and the defensive. The Vikings, when it comes to adding to strengths, not weaknesses, they just don't. They don't do it in terms of like offense defense. They do it more in terms of like position. It's weird. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like so the departure of Adrian Peterson, they brought in Dalvin Cook. Now a need for sure, but there was also a lot of other things they needed. And like now the defense is starting to deteriorate a little bit. And that like in terms of dominance, they're still a good defense, but they're not dominant like they were that year 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they were unstoppable. And they're not that high turnover, win you the game defense anymore. They're the guys that go out and get a big stop, and they'll play gritty the whole game. But instead of like kind of filling in pieces with the defensive, they really hit home on the loss of Diggs, and they still have a decent offensive unit with Cook and Thielen and whatnot. So like I said, these guys are kind of like an asterisk because they kind of hit every one of these notes like in a different way than when I originally wrote it. Because when I wrote it, I was thinking Chargers, but then I was like, if you go back far enough, it doesn't really make that much sense. Because the Chargers really, this constant rebuild thing for the Chargers really kind of starts like from Denver's Super Bowl runs and on, which for me isn't long enough to give an example for this.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect.
Well, for a long time, they were fighting the battle of Blair Walsh.
The Blair Walsh battle.
Yeah.
Ever since he missed that kick in Seattle in the playoff game, boy, did that guy suck.
Yeah.
They kept him around for a long time.
Kendall? Do you have a
Okay.
tune-up thing? So do you want me to go through your bullet points first, or do you want to do them? Do you have...
I wrote you. Why don't you lead me in?
All right. So the ideas we wrote for the tune-ups were your tune-up teams. They always find success in the regular season and tend to have playoff runs, not just a one-and-done appearances. Maybe not every year, but consistently are making playoff appearances and usually making a couple deep runs. They usually draft pretty well or acquire high-impact free agents. They're not the guys that go out and sign, just Joe Schmo guys or have big whiffs in drafts. They do their homework and they get the right pieces to their puzzle. They usually have kind of a minimal roster turnover. If someone leaves, it's due to a cap space thing, not a desire to leave.
Yeah.
And they often, almost always, use the draft and free agency to address their flaws, not their strengths. The tune-up teams usually, if you have a tune-up team that is third in offense and 10th in defense, you can bet your marbles that they're making very few impact decisions on the offensive side of the ball. They're filling in little pieces here and there, and then they tend to have a very strong veteran leadership with a very consistent, respected coaching staff.
So, in kind of what Paul had mentioned with his topic, a lot of history is involved with these teams. So, I apologize for this being kind of long-winded, but I think this information is pertinent. So, for this team, I
Jesus, what the hell is that? Are you giving us a press conference?
It is. So, I picked New England Patriots.
Well,
So,
it's your favorite team.
It is, after all.
So it's funny, when I wrote this, I was going off of New England, because that's the perfect tune-up team, right? I mean, it has been the perfect tune-up team. And I was hoping that, before I assigned it, I was hoping whoever got it picked New England and didn't use what happened over the past 4 months as, like, the reason to not pick them. Because obviously New England is not the tune-up team now. Well, granted, we don't know. They could very well come out and be the... Bill Belichick could very well come out and go 16-0.
Super bummer.
But I mean, I'm glad you picked them because they are the prime. I mean, I think every single one of these phases for the NFL, you could have had at least one or two discrepancies, teams that you could have said, I think this team fits that better or whatever. I don't think there's a tune-up team, a team that fits this tune-up category better than the Patriots. Would you agree, Mock?
The only one I would put close is like the Saints, but even still, I mean, New England's far above ahead them in these categories. But I mean, the Saints are similar, where you don't see them do like these big overhauls. They address through the draft, and they've had that veteran presence,
right? But
the coach.
But the thing with the Saints is so the Saints are one of those teams where I feel like they don't hit the tune-up thing only because you're right, they don't do these big overhauls, and they do tend to address things through the draft. But they have these like periods of missing playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, like decent stretches of it. I mean, for me, I would say like the team that I think would probably be closest would be Green Bay. I think that's probably the biggest. I think the closest example would be either Green Bay. If you're going up, if you discredit last season, I think that Pittsburgh's a team that you can consider a tune-up team over the.
Don't discredit it.
Over the past 15 years. Baltimore is a tune-up team.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's
Seattle.
Yeah, a lot of the guys you see every year. That's what it is. I mean, really, every year it's in the NFC. You're not foolish to bet on Green Bay and Seattle, and you're not foolish to bet on Baltimore, Pittsburgh, New England.
Yeah,
and Jacksonville. Jacksonville's always a sure thing.
Surefire.
Surefire Jets. Would you like to hear my spiel?
Yeah, let's hear you
All
talk
right.
about how great New England is.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I really glorified him.
You're
in
reciting this from
paragraph.
memory.
I wish I would have from memory.
Hey,
All right.
this is a PG show. We didn't even know about you glory holing them.
Oh my goodness.
Peek behind the curtain.
Over the past 20 years, under head coach Bill Belichick, they have gone 237-83, touting a 741 winning percentage. In this time, this team has amassed 6 Super Bowls and 9 championship appearances, winning the AFC 17 times. In addition, this team owns one of the highest margins of victory of all time, seeding 2 teams out of the top 10 by best winners all by points. Where this team on paper has very high roster turnover and amassed a great deal of players for a short period of time, the Patriots have always found success and get the most out of every player. Prime examples are that of Randy Moss and Wes Welker. Now, where there has been longevity, there's always been offensive production. Examples of this are from running backs to break 1,000 yards, LeGarrette Blount, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and Stephen Ridley. In addition to Belichick's coaching, he has a very successful coaching tree. Members of the staff have landed coaching jobs elsewhere, on top of having great success in New England. The names include Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia, Romeo Crennel, Bill O'Brien, Dean Pease, and Eric Mangini.
You can put Mike Vrabel in there.
And I forgot about Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, he's like the only good coach out of all those guys.
No,
Isn't he the only one that's beaten? Or no, Patricia beat him, right? Didn't the
Yeah.
Lions beat the... Yeah.
Hilarious.
Hasn't O'Brien beaten him once?
I think so. Though these coaches lack passion and likability from players and products alike, they get results. These coaches have actually won some games elsewhere, not to the ability that Bill Belichick has, but they've been successful. The Patriots have always had ability to draft great, finding great picks in late rounds like Julian Edelman at 232 in the 7th round, as well as formidable first-round picks, including Richard Seymour and Damian Woody. New England is on pace now to enter its first more major type rebuild in 20 years. It is evident, however, that there's a formula in place, and this team will continue to have some relative success. I think we're going to foresee Brian Hoyer most likely to be the starter, and with not a ton of explosive talent, will run a more conservative offense, but they will try to recapture some of the defensive magic from last season, adding depth to their offense in the skill position may able them to continue being productive.
Yeah, suck their dick already, bro.
Kyle, I worked very hard on this.
I think he could have done better.
You know what, Mass? That's a wrap. Go to bed.
Like, I get it. I think New England was the right team. That's all I can really say to it.
I printed out some stats.
If it's like stats that we already knew.
Well, this is really what it boils down to. So I picked Randy Moss and Wes Welker, and I think the pertinence of picking them was in 2005 2006, Randy Moss played in Oakland and had statistically some of his worst years. He went to New England and immediately had one of his best years.
Remember some of his quarterbacks in Oakland?
Right, and I don't discredit that, but that's a guy
Matt
who...
Casupia?
I still buy into the fact that it was a giant ploy by the NFL to have
It
Randy,
was.
Randy Moss get traded to the Vikings to catch Favre's 500th touchdown and then immediately ship him to some bullshit team.
With
Like,
Tennessee.
'cause that's what I think it was. I think it was some deal where it was like the Patriots were like, we have a deal with Tennessee in place, and the NFL was just like, look, well, like you can cheat against the Colts later or something,
It's for ratings.
and we'll look over it at the time, and then we'll fix it later, type of thing. But just it's a Monday night game. Who gives a fuck about the Vikings if Randy Moss is there?
Yeah. But Randy Moss could have just as well died in Oakland, and you just would have been a guy who was good for the Vikings in the late 90s. But went to New England and, revitalized his career and, balled out and really made me mad for a while. Another guy, perfect example, Wes Welker, who was kind of a special teams guy in Miami and San Diego. He was good, but not at the wide receiver ability that he was in New England. As soon as he went to New England, his targets went up, his receptions went up, his touchdowns went up, and he, flourished there for, 5 seasons essentially. So.
Would you like to tell us more about how you like New England?
Nope, I just like to do a good job.
Move on to baseball.
All right.
Phase 1 there, Massey.
All right, so
He's gonna need like a defibrillator soon.
yeah,
Got a saline solution?
something. Bring down the graves.
Get like a car
Uh,
battery to the nipples.
I'm glad you enjoyed that.
was good.
I went with the Baltimore Orioles.
Yuck.
Yuck indeed. I mean, we all saw what happened to them in 2018. It wasn't. We saw what's been happening to them for a while. 2019, they at least made some slow efforts into starting the rebuild. You know, with hiring what's his face, Elias, Mike Elias, right?
Walk with Elias.
Yeah.
Kendall was just like, "Come on, someone
Somebody-
tee it up for me. Someone tee it up for me, please, please." I'm just...
I was looking around the room. Come on, somebody.
I think his name is Mark Ellis.
Who wants to walk with a lamb?
Anyways,
Real quick, sorry, Mass. One more. But the whole walk with Elias thing is a WWE thing where a guy comes out with a guitar and he pretends to be this culty guy who's like, "Who wants to walk?" And Kendall, whenever you'd watch wrestling with him, Kendall would just sit there and he would just raise his hand like this. He'd raise one finger and he would just be like, I would like to walk with Elias." Like, he just says it like,
Yeah, and then he gets beat up and it's over.
yeah. A good time with Kendall is to watch wrestling with him because he has a couple theme songs that he likes to sing. Like when John Cena comes out, he's just, "It's John Cena, it's John Cena." And then what's the Big Show's one that you go?
Oh, it's the shit show.
Yeah.
And
Hey.
Sasha Banks.
You don't talk about my father.
You can't see me. Here's my towel.
And it was really fun. And then he sings too when Zack Ryder would come out and he'd be like, "Worst wrestler alive."
That's not how his song goes.
I like Zack Ryder.
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
I wish
so,
Zack Ryder came out to the Internet song by Paul Wall.
Oh god.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, Mass. I'm done, Mass. You're so bright right now.
I know. You're glowing.
Handsome devil, you.
So they've really started to focus in the 1 year that they've been rebuilding on their farm system, which was a joke before this. I mean, this team is not good. This team will not be good for.
Tell us how you really feel, Mass.
I mean, last year, 2019, I think there were 25 players who had never played for them before, suited up, and I think only 2 of them were drafted and developed by the Orioles, and the rest of them had started or had been gotten under contract in 2018. This team has no homegrown talent. They're coming into 2020 with all of their draft picks, I believe, and a couple extras in the second round. But this is if you can go further back than a stage 1 rebuilding team, that's where the Orioles would be. But I'll put them at that. That's that.
Now, what do they do with Mark Ellis?
He is their general manager, Mike Elias, I think.
Michelangelo. No, I'm joking. I don't know much about their front office. I just know they're not good.
Whoever their general manager is.
Tom Siebert.
No, it's Mike
don't
Elias.
you dare.
I don't know anything about him. No, they're
He works
definitely
on
a
the
team
Orioles.
that's going to take a while.
Probably the better part of a decade.
No,
Not that long, but a while.
I mean they're going to trade Mancini at some point if he gets healthy. But
There, Kendall.
Yeah, I was trying to communicate.
He asked me
with
how much
Paul.
the beer was, and I said 14, and then he's like, "Oh, 15," and I'm like, 14, and then I said 99. It's not 15, it's 14.99. But he's sitting there and he's like, 1.4? Like, yeah, it's 1.4. Yep.
It's at the Richter scale?
You're gay. In like a happy sense of the way.
Hey, you.
like the Orioles were definitely like the easiest team for that.
Well, yeah, they're a pretty trash
There's a lot
club.
of teams that can fit that bill.
But the Orioles are a pretty trash club.
You know,
Orioles are not good.
the Pirates are definitely one of those teams.
See, the
Pirates-
Pirates, though, are going to be the constant rebuild team.
See, it's funny that you say that because I'm still really on the fence about it.
So, as we mentioned, I did the assignment incorrectly.
Shocker.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
No, I was talking about Mass's penis.
It's at least 17 inches, right, Mass?
Oh, my.
Wow.
It might be 16.99.
Does that have to fold like one of those rulers?
Guy
It
just
folds
carries
in
a measuring
folds in
tape.
3 sections. Like one section folds in like this, another one folds in like that.
That just looks like that fucking hurts.
So the team I chose was off the minor success bullet point. But I said the Oakland Athletics. And it's mostly because this is a team that does tend to make the playoffs, but they don't do anything. And then they trade away all their young players and kind of start over and do the exact same thing the next year. I didn't know. I was looking at a list of some of the players they've traded away, and oh my, it's a good list.
If they were able to keep any of those guys.
It is a good list of players that the Athletics have traded away.
Remember that rotation?
Frankie Muniz.
I'll just give you the top 5 names that I came across. Carlos Gonzalez.
Yes.
Carlos Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought I was saying
You know
his
who we
name
traded
wrong.
For?
I don't know what the trade
Matt
for.
Holliday, who traded.
Oh
for
yeah, that's right.
We brought him back to the Athletics in our new franchise.
So yeah, Carlos Gonzalez, Sonny Gray when he was still good.
Still,
Addison Russell.
who cares?
He's a good ball player.
He got no playing time last year.
Yeah, kind of got in some trouble, but they had Cespedes when he was still pretty good before the Mets ruined him.
Yeah, stop ruining players.
And then probably the
Yeah, trade
biggest
trap.
one, the biggest trade away, Josh Donaldson. It's just that's a lot of and I mean, these guys were all on this team kind of around the same time. So there probably could have been a way to kind of pair some of them up and kind of they could have had a really good squad for some time. But they traded it all away and just kind of losing the wild card round.
yeah,
That's a fair assessment.
I'm gonna go one step further.
Oh my.
They're in phase 3.
So you're disagreeing with what he says?
Yeah, 100%.
Just checking.
Like, there's a lot to it that is true,
Pretty much all of it was true.
but I'm gonna go ahead and explain why I think they could do more.
You should talk more into the microphone.
Shut the fuck up.
Just trying to help you out, guy.
Yeah.
Lift the arm up a little bit. Just a little bit.
Lift your fucking head up. We wouldn't have this problem.
By the bar, not the mic. Can I show you a trick?
Yeah.
If you hold the back bar and lift this bar, it works out a lot better for you.
Like
Yeah.
that?
Look at that.
His arms aren't long enough.
T-Rex those arms,
Yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
So I'm on phase 3 with the Oakland Athletics, and so right now their lineup is looking at Marcus Simeon, Roman Laureano, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Mark Canna, Chris Davis, Robbie Grossman, Sean Murphy, and Anthony Kemp. I don't know who the fuck Anthony Kemp is, but
Matt's brother.
thanks.
Ah, damn, I was going to say cousin.
The rotation is Michael Fires, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montez, Jesus Luzardo, and Chris Bassett.
Don't point at me.
Their bullpen is Liam Hendrick, Yasmir Petit, Joaquim Soria, Jake Diekman, TJ McFarland, and Lou Trevino.
Just read us their whole roster.
I did. And I will
Top
explain why
25.
in just a second. So last year they finished 97-65, and the year before that they finished 97-65, which earned them the wild card game, which they lost because
they're a phase 2 team.
no, because they're a couple players away from being, potentially better than the Astros. They match up with them defensively. They match up with them mostly for the most part hitting. The rotation bird needs fixing because the number one is Michael Fires, which we all know has a history of being really good or very bad.
Somebody say a dumpster fire.
He'll either go out and give you
Minor dumpster variety.
he'll go out and give you like a 3.5 ERA, or he'll go out there and give you a 6.9 ERA. There is no in between.
You decide.
We're not gonna let Kendall get away with that.
I'm just gonna keep
I want to
going.
hit him with an egg.
So I
Give me an
think
egg.
with that being said, they could call a team like the Detroit Tigers, who are in that stage 1 area, who might be looking to sell. They don't have a lot to sell because nobody knows their lineup besides
Sell
Miguel
the
Cabrera.
franchise.
But they have 2 starting pitchers on that team that they've been trying to trade forever. Michael Fulmer, who they won't get a lot for because he's coming off Tommy John, or they can trade for Matt Boyd, who they could probably get a decent amount for because he had a good season last year. Either one of those guys will fit at the top of the rotation, which means in a wild card game, they have a better shot than Michael Fires or
They might win that one game.
because Frankie Montez and Jesus Luzardo are young. We don't know what they really have. Another part of their team that they could upgrade is an outfield position, or they upgrade catcher or second base. But I think outfield is where it's easier, and I think they'll do that. I think they could do that potentially more at the trade deadline. If the team like the Chicago Cubs have a down year, which is very plausible because they're so old and they're not the same team, they could go out and trade for a Kyle Schwarber, a cheaper option,
Sure.
who could DH, or he could play left field. He's gotten better every year. Or they can go out and they can get defensive-minded outfielder in Jason Hayward if they want to eat the contract, which they can because they have every fucking penny in the world and they don't pay anybody.
I don't think they have every penny in the world, but I think they have a lot of them.
So I just think they're a couple pieces away from making, a deep run into the playoffs. I think they're poised. They have very good defense all around. They had 3 Gold Glovers last year.
Yeah, where are they going to be playing after this season?
Still on the team.
When they trade them away
We don't know.
for
Other guys that are just like them.
for an aging Tom Glavine, gonna make one more run at it.
That's where I see the A's. I think they're in phase 3, back-to-back 97-65. I think they just need one big push to take them over the edge.
They've needed that push for the better part of 15 years.
Yeah, well, at least one time they had Barry Zito, Tim Hudson, and Mark Mulder, all right? And Rich Harden.
Who I forget which trade it was. Let me pull up the list real
Can
quick.
you just say the name?
Well, I'm trying to. It was the Athletics one. Oh, was it the Cespedes trade that they sent him for Salmon Deja?
Was he a Tiger?
Salmon Deja.
No, I think
Or was
Samardzija
it-
was a White Sox.
Its
No,
name is
Samardzija
Salmon
was a
Deja.
Tiger.
No, he wasn't.
Wasn't there a picture of him and
Salmon
Verlander?
Deja.
Jeff Samardzija was traded for Marcus Semien.
Wasn't he in the Tigers though?
No.
So
There was
he's
a
not.
picture of him and there's a Verlander and somebody together.
Scherzer?
Scherzer. Thanks, Kyle.
Fucking idiot.
Whoa, not cool.
They don't even look close to the same.
No, there's an S in their last name.
Anyways,
Anything? Anybody? Anybody have anything
Well,
to say?
it's tough because there's both good points. I mean,
Yeah, mine blows his out of the water.
well, I mean, I think
it was for Addison Russell. He was part of the Addison Russell trade.
so. I guess what the real thing that has to be considered is what the relative success is. Previously, I mean, so what were the A's doing 5 years ago?
Oh, they made a playoff game. Because they traded for John Lester and Salmon Deja. They just lost. Like they do all the time. Because at that point, they didn't have an offense. It's usually one or the other with that fucking team. Now they have a good mixture of both. Yeah. Drink that fucking Bud Light lemon, you bitch.
It's so awful.
Just pour it out.
I can't. It's wasteful.
But Kendall,
But nothing.
your
I think it's
set of
time-
values.
I think it's time for Phase 4.
No, it's not called Phase 4. It's called Constant Rebuild.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There wouldn't be a Phase 4 because if Phase 3 was finishing the rebuild, then after that the rebuild would be over, and you couldn't call it Phase 4 end of rebuild because that'd be dumb.
You're right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you.
Did you like my thing?
I didn't listen to it.
All right.
I read the Notebook several times though. You kept showing it to me. How's this look? How's that look?
You texted it to me.
Well, I had to because you would have did it wrong.
You're right. You saved me.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, what? Oh, Constant Rebuild?
Yeah,
For the
Constant Rebuild.
we're doing this is for the MLB, right?
Yeah.
All right.
For
So-
NASCAR.
Oh, NASCAR. All right.
Jimmy Stewart
Jeff Gordon.
builds that car every week.
He said Jimmy Stewart.
What's his name? Nope. His pit crew leader.
Jimmy
is
Stewart
Jim.
Well,
is
no,
a
shit.
legendary actor.
Vertigo.
Jimmy Stewart.
Paul does a decent imitation.
Nah, I can't do it now.
Come on.
I can't.
Come on.
Well, nah.
Oh, speaking
I
of
can't
that,
do it. No.
Massey, you always said Mary Poppins.
What?
What?
Isn't that what he did?
No.
What was it? What did he do?
The
He
Popeye's
did-
chicken lady.
Oh.
I was lost
Massey,
for a second.
Massey, can you give us a Louisiana Popeye's chicken lady?
No, right now I can't.
Come on.
You're always going to tell
If
us
you
no.
give
I'll
it, if
do
you
it.
if
I'll
you
do it for the live show when I come next week.
if you give it to me now, I'll give you a response to whatever you say in Marvin the Martian.
No.
Oh.
You're just gonna deprive the world.
I thought it was Mary
That's
Poppins.
That's terrible, everything.
When he said Mary Poppins, like, what is going on?
I just picture just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine. All right, so for the MLB, I started off doing the Pirates, which you had said earlier. They're the constant.
Well, that's the low hanging fruit.
Well, but see, that's the thing though, is they're not. If you look into it, it seems like it because they never fully commit to the rebuild. But I don't consider them a constant rebuilding team because they don't really have success. I mean, they since the 2000s they've lost in the divisional round series once and the wild card twice in 20 years.
And we're really bad.
I
when we
mean,
were kids.
they're just a team that like they constantly just dig themselves into a hole of being unable to rebuild. I mean, the more I went into it, I mean, like they do have some high turnover. I mean, but like recently, the McCutcheon and the Cole losses, cap casualties. They never have any money to sign any.
Well, they have the money. They just refuse to spend it.
No, they don't though. They really don't. If you look deep into it, they're one of the worst teams in terms of cap towards high impactful change. They have a lot of money in terms of being able to go out and get 6 or 7 guys to fill in bench spots and rotation pieces, but they can't. They can never go out and get the Harper.
They can't spread out a contract. It's like, hey, we'll give you $80 million for 4 years and 2 other guys for the same deal.
Well, it's just, but they never have the money to go out and get a Harper or like a Realmuto or a Judge or whatever. Like they don't have that kind of money. They have the money to go out and get a bunch of like Adam Ingalls, and that's what they do. And then they're always right in the middle of the pack in their farm system. Always. This year, coming into this year, they were ranked 17th. Last year, 16th. The year before that was 15th. The year before that was 18th. The year before that was 19th. The year before that was 15th. The year before that was 17th.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
usually when
always
those
right in the
guys
middle.
come up, they don't do very well.
So it's like I decided to change it and go to the San Francisco Giants. Now they're on the much higher end of the constant rebuild, but they don't qualify, in my opinion, as a tune-up squad. In 20 years, they've only had 3 managers, not including the legendary
Gabe Kapler.
Dusty Baker. Fuck Gabe Kapler. He's not a manager yet there. He could get canned and he'll never be on the record book as a manager, never manage the game. But in those years, they've had 5 first place finishes, 9 second place finishes, and then the rest were below that. So, I mean, realistically though, and I think they finish in last twice. So that's 7. So 13 times they finish in the middle portion of their division, which that's kind of right around that constant rebuild. They had a multitude of playoff appearances, which kind of constituted that constant rebuild. But like I said, they're on the higher end of the spectrum. In those 20 years, they went to 4 World Series and won 3 of them, and then they lost in the divisional round 3 times. But they have, in the beginning of the decade, they were making the playoffs. They lost in the divisional round. They lost the World Series. Then they kind of got a little shaky for a while. Not bad, but, in that middle portion. Then they came back and won every other World Series. And then they started to decline. Then they made another playoff appearance, and now they're on the decline again. And so
They refuse to give up the old guys.
well, but the thing too though is like while they were doing their dominant thing, they were surrounded by the Phase 1 Dodgers, and the Dodgers came in and took over. When they were doing their thing right in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's when Arizona was coming up and doing their rebuild process, and then Arizona was on the top for a little while, and then the Rockies had a stint in there, and the Padres suck, and so.
Can't forget the Padres.
They made the playoffs twice in the last 30 years.
I put them as the rebuild team, definitely the constant rebuild team. They're on the higher end of it, and I still think they're a team that is trying to. They're constantly rebuilding. They're never a team that's just, they were a tune-up team for a while, but they weren't they were a tune-up team for 5 years, which isn't long enough to be a tune-up team in general. So I just feel like, they just hit that one time they got that fucking constant rebuild part. They fucking hit it right on the head.
Yeah, they were fortunate when they made the playoffs. It's like, hey, they're going to win the World Series when they made it.
As long as it's an odd year, they got it.
You know what's weird? The main pieces of that team, Lincecum and Kane, had very short stints of dominance, but when they were dominant, they were untouchable. Then, with a flip of a switch, it was all over.
And granted, there's years in between, so obviously you expect it. But a lot of the reason for success in the early 2000s was not there when they dipped, and then found new success for it in the middle 2000s, 2010s, and then like Kyle said, that they didn't want to make the same mistake by letting those guys go again and falling into that thing. But they held on to him too long.
Like Bumgarner. Instead of getting something for him, they got nothing. Let him walk.
And that's what's going to happen with Buster Posey.
Yeah.
Brandon Belt.
I think Buster Posey is the only guy on the show this year that has a 0 speed. Even Salvador Perez has a 9 speed.
It's really a 0.
It's a 0.
And they brought back.
I threw him out from left. He hit an absolute bullet to left field with the shift on. So it was more like left center, but I still threw him out at first.
I would take that pretty personally if I was him.
Wow, you have a 0 speed in real life.
But just imagine,
we all do.
But here's the thing, we could just say, I'm yeah, that's... Someone actually went in and quantified this and put it out there.
This guy is actually walking when he's playing baseball.
Hey, you're a professional athlete. That's the slowest fucking guy in the league by a lot.
It's because all that hardware is weighing him down. That's what I would say. I mean, because 3 World Series rings weigh a lot, but I'm sure all those silver sluggers don't make him any faster. Plus, I'm sure he's probably got some gold gloves as catcher, right?
I think so.
I mean, he was really good defensively.
He was really good. And he broke his leg.
Yeah.
So I scrapped the Pirates and went the Giants, just because the Pirates, they are a constant rebuild team, but really, really on the low end.
They're a constant Phase 1.
Right, exactly. That's just what it is. They're a team that's stuck in Phase 1 forever. They're like the Browns. They're the Browns of the MLB. They picked a phase and they're like, this seems right. And then they're like, how do we get out of it? No, you don't. You're stuck here for life.
Can we send that soundbite to Jeff?
What other team that could
We'll
fit
dial
that?
him in.
The Pirates are the Browns of the MLB.
So the MLB is really hard. Because I went through it and I looked at every single team's. I didn't look at transactions and things like that. But I went through and I looked at every single team's finishing for 2000 and on, and a lot of them, teams that come to mind when you think of the constant rebuild, you like to think of those consistent teams. And I mean, but in the MLB, the consistent teams are the guys that are always finishing in first, for the Cardinals. I mean, the Phillies, they had a run of dominance and then were really bad in between it.
They
The
did
White
the same
Sox,
thing the Giants did.
like the Cubs, I mean, they're, in the MLB there is very few teams that have kind of like a large window of similarity. So like, whereas like when we did the NFL, the Vikings kind of had like a consistent thing going with like very like it was like a line, and then it would peak up a little bit and peak down a little bit. The Giants had like a high peak, and then it went to kind of average, and then they just copied and pasted that into the 2010s.
Yeah.
Well, another like a team that fits, I think
So you're saying there's a team that fits it better?
just one team.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think
Please say the Pirates.
it's Arizona, and I say that because they're a team that always is in the middle. Like there've been a few years where they'll finish in first, but for the most part they finish in third or fourth, and they try to get themselves out of it by signing guys like Greinke and Bumgarner, but they just don't pitch the same for them.
Well, and then they get rid of Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but then they'll find another guy that like fit into like a lot less, but like he'll bat like 280.
So I agree with what you're saying, but Paul kind of qualified what his point was that the Giants are kind of like the higher end of what this is.
I know. I'm not.
No, I know.
no, he's saying I'm wrong.
Just
fine.
conversation.
Kendall just likes to discredit you, Kyle.
No,
Just,
I get it.
I
I just personally think like I
No,
think the Diamondbacks are that team that's always in the middle of trying to get there.
You're right.
But-
So the reason I didn't pick the Diamondbacks is because for the constant rebuild, there has to be some level of consistency. And I know what you're saying, like they finish along the middle of the pack a lot, and that seems like the case. But I'm gonna read it off to you. So it went first, fifth, second, fourth, first, fifth, first, third, second, fifth, fourth, fifth, second, first. So it's like you just either like it's just like roll the dice and that's the season.
If you put it together, they're always finishing in third.
Right, but that's not a constant rebuild. That's just like it's just like they're exactly like the Stewie Griffin thing with the Mets. It's just like here's the first pitch and there goes the season. Like it's just like or it's hey, he threw a perfect game to start the season. Like it's just
It's like,
I
hey,
did
let's
that
not
last
be the
night.
worst.
I did that the other night. I'm a beginner.
So Kyle and I decided we did we'll go into this after we finish the MLB. So you go ahead and do your tune-ups, you rat.
Okay. So I did. I chose the New York Yankees. This team has finished first in the AL East 11 times in the past 20 years, continuing a very powerful stretch in the mid to late 90s.
back like, yeah, that's my team.
Historically, this is the greatest baseball team of all time due to first place finishes,
they're also-
as well as World Series wins and appearances. Though this past decade the team was eluded of a World Series appearance, their overall impact in the AL as well as making deep push in the playoffs is not to be denied. Between 1996 and 2017, Joe Torre and Joe Girardi have combined for 2,083 wins.
And then they fired both of them.
Over the span, never going under 500. Though perhaps a crutch the Yankees benefit from playing in the biggest market in sports and having very deep pockets. This has allowed the team to entice and sign free agents for years and years. Names like CeCe Sabathia, James Paxton, and now Garrett Cole have been major pitching moves in recent memory.
Hold on. Quick thing. You had the balls to put James Paxton in there?
Kyle, do you want me to read his numbers from the past years?
I
versus
get what he
Cleveland?
did in Seattle. But he
Kyle?
was trash for the Yankees.
But no, Kyle.
It wasn't. He
Kyle?
was great till he got hurt.
Kyle, I printed this out for this exact reason. Hold on. I have
On
CeCe
yellow paper.
On yellow paper wasn't my decision.
It would have been. I mean, I would have been more like excited if it was canary yellow. You printed on goldenrod yellow. It's not goldenrod. It's just like sunflower yellow. The point is that you're gay, Kendall. Okay.
Oh.
Happy. You're happy.
No, thank you. Kyle.
I'm listening.
Okay.
15 and 6, 17, 14. So basically, in his time in Seattle, he was able to produce those numbers in 3 seasons worth of the time in 1 year with the Yankees. So the Yankees were able to entice a guy who was on an upswing and take full advantage. So
Don't forget Bird too.
Greg Bird, and mostly Greg
I wasn't
Bird.
a free agent.
But honestly, probably the best Yankee I can remember.
That guy sucks.
They have made signings like Alex Rodriguez and Gary Sheffield, who are number producing machines in their own
That's
right.
better.
Fast forward to that same mentality, signing players like Giancarlo Stanton. Yes, he's a guy who's been hurt, but it's the same type of idea.
Hey man, I like him so.
The Yankees have always got the most out of their homegrown talent, getting essentially 20 years out of both Jorge Posada and Derek Jeter. A similar precedent may be set with adding a piece to pair with Miguel Andujar, who is kind of a flavor of the moment in that system. However, following that track record that the Yankees have always been a part of, come 2021, the Yankees will be in the conversation for any top free agent, including Mookie Betts, George Springer, TJ Realmuto, etc.
Say TJ Realmuto?
Oh my God, I wrote TJ Realmuto.
That is a private stock shot, sir.
Can I tell you? I heard T, and I was like, wait. I
That's
wasn't
not
100%
right.
sure.
As soon as I said it and you guys called me, I was like, oh my God, that happened.
Well-
And I typed it.
They won't be in the market for him because
Oh, well, see, here's the thing, though. By you typing it, I understand why you did it. If you had handwritten it, it would have been more ridicule. But you can't type to save
they
your
won't be in the
life.
market for him because Yankee fans think Gary Sanchez is the greatest thing that God's ever given him.
I guess the point I'm making is that there's no player in baseball the Yankees won't sell the farm for. And we've seen it for their entire existence.
Brian Cashman's just a chew.
Well, no, it's also,
Last few years, yes, he has.
but it's not his money to spend.
Dealing it in his own pocket. You know what?
No, ever since the Steinbrenner kids took over, they don't spend like George did. They're a little more fiscally sound.
And they haven't won since that. What method worked?
Well, listen.
George,
Though they
I
didn't,
don't
they
know.
haven't won. They're still
When
in
did that?
contention basically every year.
Before then, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna look this up.
I'm not sure, but again, I mean, it gets them there. I mean, probably would have went to the World Series last year if it wasn't for those cheating Astros.
Hey, don't cheat in Astros.
Well, listen. Next year you're gonna have some cheating Astros on your team. There's
yeah,
a couple of shirt seats coming
2010.
your way.
So George Steinbrenner was alive. you
but
think.
he was alive, and I think he stopped running the
you
team.
don't know that.
So yeah. Any disputes?
You know, Ken, that was a very well job you did. I
Why-
applaud you.
Thank you.
Yankees are just the Patriots at the MLB.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, and I don't know, the Cardinals might be the Patriots at the MLB.
Listen,
Listen, always good and that pisses everyone off.
it's all the same.
With a lot of old guys.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Fuck you, Mass. I feel like you're even there, you handsome bastard.
So it's a very Vito Russo thing to say.
Hey, you want to go to the campground?
Nope.
Yes. I gotta move this picnic table 3,000 yards
3,000 yards?
through a thick brush.
You need to like move a piano with him.
In a
Hope you like
You know-
prickers.
in a mobile home. All right, want to take a quick break?
Yeah, we'll take a breakster. We'll take we'll see you on the other side.
And now, back to Getting Sports with Drunk on the PPRN Radio Network.
Welcome back to Getting Sports with Drunk. I'm your host, Cupcake the Riddler, and I'm joined by...
That was nice. In 152 shows we've done, whatever it is now.
We've never come back with a beer open.
Beer open. That was real. I also have a sub. I drank the lemon tea in the break, but I'm making a change to the agave wheat from Breckenridge Brewery in Colorado.
What kind of beer is it?
It is a...
I mean, obviously it's a wheat beer, but, like, it's got agave in the name, so is it, like, aged in tequila barrels or something?
I will find out.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, you dumb bitch. All right, so we're coming back to the rebuild segment. We got two more sports left. The two hardest sports for our crew in whole, especially when you do it wrong.
Yep.
But we're going to go into the national... Kyle's like, shit, that could be either one. That's right, the
Bowling,
National...
bowling.
Lacrosse Association.
The National Baseball League. How gross does that sound? The NBL.
It's an image of a player just sitting down.
For the Pacific conference.
So, anyways, for the NHL,
Nope, and NBA. We're going NBA.
Be a dickhead, Mass. You probably wouldn't go NHL if you went NBA.
I gotta tell you, I'm a huge fan of like every like. This is exactly what happens. Whatever he's doing on his computer, but like mask gets like ghostly white, and the background gets like dark, and then the background gets darker, and mask comes in focus. Oh no!
That's exactly what just happened.
Do you guys see that 5-figure dildo behind him?
Yeah, it's got like the tips. Yeah, it's got the little vibrator tips at the end. Yeah,
Pretty cool.
Hmm.
You plug that
Lights
in.
you up like a tree.
Call it a Rudolph.
Oh, I miss you, Massey.
I miss you too, bud.
You don't miss me.
Right, you, Kyle.
Don't lie to me. I got a zip tie.
What?
I brought it from home.
Rick.
All right, so Paul.
Nope, mass.
Well, all right.
Yeah, we're doing the rebuild thing. If you're just joining us, or you're coming in halfway through, or whatever you're doing on Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. We're doing a rebuild segment where Mass is taking care of the first phase of the rebuild, which is the entry level of the rebuild, the beginner stages, dipping the toes in the water. Mock is taking care of the second phase of the rebuild, which is the meat and potatoes, the involved part. We're too far in to turn back, but we're not far enough in where we can still fuck it up. And Kyle's at the third stage of the rebuild, which is the we're almost there. We've done a lot right.
That's right.
And we're almost there. Meanwhile, in rebuild fashion, we have myself doing the constant rebuilds, teams that are always kind of got the wheels turning and doing some, major changes to their team on a somewhat regular basis to keep finding success, but usually tend to struggle to find the ultimate success. And then there's Kendall, who's doing the tune-up rebuilds, which is teams that often find a large amount of success and are very good and have very solid rosters and do very minute changes, very tiny little things that you might not never even notice to help rebuild their team from the 1 point, 1 point semifinal loss last year into the championship team this year.
It's beautiful.
Shut the fuck
You
up.
kissed after your
I
hand.
know.
You were like this was you.
I think it was the first time I ever did that in real life.
It basically, like, take your glasses off and do it. It'll make more sense because it'll be like one of those Japanese subtitles. All right, Massey, go ahead. What do you got? What do you got for the Phase 1 NBA team? Who do you think best fits the starting the rebuild fresh?
There's a lot of teams that
NBA is rough. You're either kind of like rebuilding or you're good.
Right. So, like, a lot of options. Hawks could have been an option. The Knicks could have been an option.
The Knicks are always an option.
Right.
The Knicks are in a whole. See, there's a trend, right? Where I don't know if you were listening when we talked about the Pirates, but the Knicks are the same thing. So basically, you want to avoid a certain individual cheering for you at all costs.
Kendall.
No, what?
I don't know. Can you calm the fuck down? You're going to be marrying that guy.
Oh, she said no. I'm out. You can leave the ring.
Alexa Peel. What? We just go there. Mock's over here like, oh, I gotta go.
Nope.
All right, so what did you go with?
I have an invoice coming your way.
I ended up going with the Detroit Pistons. And now the reason why I went with the Detroit Pistons is currently they're without a general manager. So their rebuild
It's usually a good sign. It's a usual good sign. Mass, A+ so far.
So
Also, good for them for firing the other one.
Yeah, finally.
it's a situation where nobody knows what's going to happen next. It largely depends on who they end up hiring.
Massey, I know what's going to happen next.
Go ahead, Kyle.
They're going to trade Blake Griffin. Or release him.
I was about to say, so they have Griffin as a piece to do something with, but
Well, see, I like that you picked the Pistons because the Pistons were, in my opinion, a Phase 2 team until they dealt Drummond. Not that the Drummond-Griffin experiment was really working, but it was a young piece that was very good defensively and a really good rebounder, something that's not easy to come by, and a good piece to have. But once they got rid of him, you have an aging star whose best years are behind him. And so I like the pick. I'll let you keep explaining. I'm applauding you.
Well, I appreciate that.
This is the Chris Givens of picks, i.e. the best.
He wasn't very good though.
Nah, but Stedman Bailey got shot in the head.
Makes me sad still.
Yeah. He was hot
Let's
too.
see. Blah, blah, blah. Where is I can't get my Google Docs to open where I wrote all this down, so I just ended up opening the articles that I got most of my information from. So I'm flipping through like 16 different websites.
Turn off your Wi-Fi.
That damn 2020.
I like Kyle's suggestion. Get your internet off.
If you turn off the internet, it'll load a lot faster.
Yeah, what happens is an
You're right.
encyclopedia
Hold on
will
one
float
second,
up
I
from
got
your
this
bed.
real quick.
Oh, CM Punk's back.
So
Turn
anyways,
off your Wi-Fi.
Best thing you could do is unplug the computer.
let's see.
Wait, man, see the computer there? Yeah, that's your problem.
Give me a Control-Alt-Delete about 17 times.
You tried pulling off your pants and giving it a tug?
Shift F5.
Shift F5. Mass, what does Shift F5 do?
Nothing.
No, that's a shame.
Well, I'm sure in some
I saw
program
this-
somewhere. it
we're
does
doing these
something.
computer jokes. I saw this meme today that gave me you ever see those memes where you're just like, ha, that's creative. Like, it's not like really, it's not funny, but you're just like, good on that person.
It's kind of
It was-
most of Reddit.
Yeah, it
Wish
was just,
I thought of that.
it was a person that they just posted, it just said, music make you, and then it was a keyboard, but it had
Yeah.
no control buttons.
Yes, yeah, damn.
And I was just like,
basically,
I was like, ha, good on them.
so to end it out, they're entering this year, I guess, with whatever's left of the year. They have all of their future first round picks. They have a couple extra second round picks, which I've started playing in the NBA doesn't mean jack shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
and-
One out of like every 7.
Let's see the Spurs.
And they have a large amount of cap space to go with it. So they have the opportunity to do something with this.
Eh,
And that's it.
I like the pick. I like it.
Thanks.
I know Kyle was against it.
No,
Kyle, when I made you motherfucker, when I said that the Pistons would be the best fit for the
I
one,
said, then
you
said, no,
said-
they were in phase 2.
fuck you. You said that, you lying sack of shit.
No, we were talking about the Cavs.
All right. Oh yeah, that's what we were talking. Because I brought up the Cavs, you LeGarrette Blunt mistake fucker.
Hey,
That was your fault.
he ended up becoming a Lion, did he not?
You know what Kyle did? Kyle made us in the show and put himself second, knowing that I would say, you know what, Kyle, you're going to play this more, so you should be the ace. And so that, and without even questions, okay. And then so that he could start on the dynamic pitching at beginner 1 and threw a perfect game in like 51 pitches. But because it was so good, it was like immediately like intermediate 5 for ball, which don't get me wrong, I still pitched great, but like I didn't pitch a fucking perfect game.
So wait, you automatically start at beginning, like when
If you do dynamic, you automatically start at the easiest setting for both hitting and pitching, and you go up as you do better.
Yeah,
And then eventually you get to like Hall of Fame, and then everything you throw is hit out of the park, and then you strike out on every single thing on the edge of the strikeout zone, and then they're like, yeah, we'll dial it back. That was funny to watch for a minute. Phase 2?
All right. My team for the Phase 2 rebuild is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mistake.
I tell you what.
Not by you, by them.
Well, I tell you what. Halfway through saying Minnesota, I was questioning it.
I don't like this. This team for me is just, they've doomed themselves for years of failure.
They doomed themselves for failure a long time ago.
No, but they doomed themselves even more now. Because here's the thing. Being doomed for failure for 5 years with 2 superstars is terrible. Dooming yourself for failure for 5 years because you're going to acquire a lot of future assets by trading a superstar, way better. We see it all the time. The NBA teams love to do that. When in the time the Sixers made a fucking decade out of it. I mean, D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns are not gonna. They're not those guys. That's not what they are.
They can't play defense. Neither one of them.
Towns can play defense, but only down low. Towns can only play defense the perfect centers for like Towns are like honestly Towns is out of touch. Towns should have been a decade earlier. Towns would have been good against Alonzo Mourning's, Ben Wallace's, Dennis Rodman, Shaquille O'Neal's, guys that made a living in the paint. Towns can play defense there. Towns can't play defense the minute a foot comes out of the paint. He doesn't have the speed to keep up with him. He's got the touch, which makes him a great threat from the outside, but he can't. It's like Embiid. Embiid is not the best defender in the world once you get him out in the perimeter. You can easily blow by him. But anyway,
I watched a pretty funny Embiid video the other day.
Was it him trying to speak?
No, it was like a Bleacher Report. It was an actual video. It was either Bleacher Report or Sports Center, but it was like, Embiid is a problem down low, and it was like 10 highlights, and I watched them, and I was like, they were just like the softest dunks. Like there would just be no one around him. He just takes it, and I was like, what is happening here? It was funny, but yeah, the Timberwolves. I mean, you kind of hit on it. They traded for Russell. We all kind of thought they were going to move Cat, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Not now.
Wiggins, that guy's not good.
Well,
he wasn't good there. It was the wrong fit.
But he's a guy too that they could trade, just kind of get what you can for him. And they got to draft well. I mean, it's a team there.
they ain't gonna draft well. They've had a long history of not drafting well. I think their next step is to get Devin Booker. And they've all made it pretty clear they all want to play together.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be their thing, and if they can do that, that will seal it up. But
it kind of won't though.
It won't. It'll seal it up for them going from phase 2 to phase 3, almost out of like being a playoff contending team regularly.
Yeah, they'll be able to score, but boy, those games are gonna be high scoring.
It's gonna be like the Rockets.
Yeah, like 1-0.
God, can you imagine Timberwolves Rockets game
136 to 149
at the end of the first quarter?
Like they've all made it pretty clear that they.
It's
all
the
wanna
right
play
pick,
together.
Mark. They're a real strong phase 2 team. I mean, I think that there's a lot of those teams that kind of like hit into that phase 2 category. I mean, it's weird. Like I almost think that the Toronto's in that phase 2 category. They kind of went from like being like the team last year to phase 2. They have a solid point guard that isn't afraid to play some gritty defense. They have a hustle 4 that can play decent defense and can score the ball well in Siakam. They have other pieces, but they need more. They need to fill in the rest of the team. So they kind of bypass the beginning phase part because they have 2 stars. They have 2 all-stars. So I feel like Toronto fits that bill pretty well.
Brooklyn right now fits that bill.
Brooklyn
Until next year.
Yeah, Brooklyn fits that build right now. I think Atlanta, Massey was talking about Atlanta. I think Atlanta's more phase 2 than phase 1.
Atlanta's one of those teams that, like, they're still not playing well, but they have the pieces to play well.
Atlanta's one of the thing with Atlanta is Atlanta needs to figure out who their starting lineup is and then commit to it and then see where it's at from there. Because right now they're poised to have the best team outside of Trae Young. They're poised to have the best team that if they all played the same amount of minutes, they probably would win like 50 games. But they just don't. I mean, Dallas is in that phase 2. They're just missing again another team that will score the ball at will but can't play defense. I'm trying to think of another team that's kind of like in that phase 2.
Well, Chicago's in the lower end of phase 2.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's in phase 2 roster wise, but they're in phase 0 front office wise. They need to just figure it out. I don't care if it costs them losing Levine and starting over from scratch, but just get a good head coach. Not a good head coach. You know, I mean, like your Brad Stevens wasn't good right out of the gate. I mean, he grew with the team type of thing. He wasn't the guy he is now in the beginning. But I mean, these guys they bring in, they either bring in these tactical guys that try to beat you with the X's and O's and don't have any passion with the team, or they bring in guys that have so much passion they fucking lose all trust with the team. Give me back Scott Skiles any day. Fibs.
Phase 3?
Yeah.
Shut your mouth,
Sorry.
Kendall.
So, doing phase 3, I immediately thought of 2 other teams. And I thought of the Jazz and the Nuggets. But then, as I was thinking about it. There's
I'm
one.
thinking about it.
There's one team made way more
Did you
sense.
hear Kendall chuckling there while doing his thing?
I think the Miami Heat is the perfect Phase 3 team. So before the coronavirus suspended the season, they were 41-24.
We're an official podcast. It's COVID-19.
Whatever. They were 41-24. They were fourth in the East. Right before the trade deadline, they traded for Andre Iguodala, which they thought was a missing piece for them. But earlier in the offseason, they did acquire Jimmy Butler. So before the Iguodala trade, they were playing better, but because of his experience in the playoffs, they thought, they could get something out of him. Their roster is very talented. They have Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Kelly Olynyk, Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Derek Jones Jr., Myers Leonard, Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder. That's a very solid lineup, but I don't think it's a roster that will win you a championship. Year prior, they finished in 10th place, and the year before that, they finished in 6th. They've been around the 6 to 10 spot for the last few years since they lost LeBron and all them. The one good thing that they do have is Eric Spoelstra, who everyone thought, he was just a good coach because he had LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. But after they all left, they stayed relevant, so everyone respects him. I thought of 2 players that they could acquire to really get him over the hump. I think Chris Paul, which has been said before, good defender, he's a good playmaker. Him alongside Jimmy Butler would give him a very good backcourt, especially with Bam Adebayo playing center. They have shooters around them. I think the Chris Paul fit is too good to be true. This is another name that I thought of, but I don't see it happening because of his injury path. If they wanted to take a different route in a gamble, they can go John Wall. John Wall will be healthy after this year. Granted, it's going to take a lot to get him because of his money and because of his injury. So they probably would have to give like a first-round pick or maybe like a Duncan Robinson or a Kendrick Nunn alongside to go with it, to match the money and everything. They pay Jimmy Butler a lot of money. And another name that I thought of that I don't know if it really makes sense, but I think the fit would be good alongside Bam would be a LaMarcus Aldridge. He could, he's not what he used to be, but he could still score the ball. And the Heat's number one problem, to me, they play defense phenomenally. But I think, if they can get like a mid-range shooter or a guy that can space the floor more, they could expand their team. They could do more with that. Andre Iguodala is not really a shooter. Aldridge is more of a shooter than Iguodala.
Mhm.
And I also said if they want to go a younger route, they can get a Lauri Markkanen because he's expressed wanting to leave Chicago. And he won't cost as much, and they would have to give up like a pick, but I think they're willing to just so they can become favorites in the East. That's my opinion.
Cool.
All right, that's fair. All right, so we'll move on to the constant rebuild team. So for me, for the NBA, for the constant rebuild, I went with the Indiana Pacers. Over the last, they have not finished in last over the last 2 decades, but they've only finished in first 3 times. So that leaves 17 middle of the pack finishes. They've had 14 playoff appearances though, so they make the playoffs They've made the playoffs 75% of the time.
Because they played in the East.
9 of those playoff appearances though were first round bounces. They've made it to the semis twice, and they lost 3 times in the finals in those 20 years. The Eastern Conference Finals.
Were all those like Eastern Conference Finals? One went to LeBron, right, or 2 of them?
I don't remember.
And one went to Jordan.
No, in the 2000s.
What was that earlier?
No, they lost 1 to the Pistons. I'm pretty sure. But they've had 5 head coaches over that time. And another big key point that we pointed out earlier was that teams that are in that constant rebuild, they tend to always focus on their strengths and never address their weaknesses. The Indiana Pacers have, for the past 20 years and many years before that, been a team that loves defensive players and never focus on guys who can score the ball, and that has been the case. The one exception to that was Paul George, but Paul George, in my opinion, is a better defender than he is a scorer. He's just a really good scorer, which says how good he really is at defense. How much good. It shows how good he really is at defense. I mean, everything that they do, whether good or bad, Jermaine O'Neal, better defender than a scorer. Roy Hibbert was a defensive prowess coming out of the draft. A lot of the big guys, Turner, defensive guy. I mean, the first real offensive over defensive guy we've seen in a long time was the Oladipo move.
You can even make an exception for that.
Yeah. So they're a team that loves their defense. They're always in the red when it comes to offensive production, but they're always towards the top of the pack in the defensive production every single year. They love their rebounds. They love their steals. They love gritty defense. And to this day, even with the Reggie Miller days, to this day, they're one of those teams that will play gritty physical defense that will cause problems. They were the only team in the early 2000s in the East that really would get physical with that 04 Pistons team. And that's not a team you want to get physical with.
Saw it firsthand. Punch in the crowd.
There's nothing I would want more or less in this world than to decide that I'm going to pick a fight with Tayshaun Prince and then Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace show up and you're just like, yeah, whatever, guys. Here's my lunch money, I guess. Like, forever. But the Pacers are kind of just always in that middle ground, and then they have little spikes up, little spikes down. You know, they'll do a lot of second place finishes with an occasional first in there. Then they'll kind of regress to that fourth place finish for a little bit, and they're just kind of in the NBA. When you play in the East, you can afford to be a constant rebuild team because you'll still make the playoffs. The West, it doesn't work like that. So I think the Pacers are the best fitting team for that category.
I think it's appropriate.
That was my butt mock.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was long, right? Yeah.
I really thought that was like wood against wood. So good on you
Thanks.
for making that noise.
Who's your tune-up team, Ken?
My tune-up team,
The Rat.
is
Baron.
the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Since 1989, the Spurs have finished second or better in their division 27 times. Winning the finals 5 out of 6 times, Greg Popovich, who took over head coaching during the 96 season, has been a beloved coach amongst fans and players and gets results. Currently holds a record of 1,272 and 611, a 676 percentage. The Spurs are the Warriors before the Warriors. I like this. There's a common rap line when he was dissing Drake. The rapper of the moment, the style you don't own it. And this is the perfect example of what the Spurs are.
Boo!
I thought you would appreciate it.
Is that Popovich rapping?
Yes, it is.
Look at Mass is so out of it that he's got to drink water to stay awake because of how boring your fucking rap lyrics are.
Oh my god, hey, that's some real lyrics. I was a big fan of the line.
Mass, drink some Jack Honey and some Graves.
If he pulled out like a Jack Honey right now, I say we stop the show, we drive up to his house.
It'd be so funny if he just. What are you doing? I can't see anything. Are you holding
A
up?
lot of tequila.
Oh, I thought you were holding up the Chubb sign.
I thought you were about to throw up.
It's not looking good over there for you,
that
Max.
cup is full of tequila and Visine. All right, so cultivating homegrown talent and drafting well. Between David Robinson, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan, playing their entire careers in San Antonio and all extremely successful. The trend was partly continued with Kawhi Leonard until that relationship ended. Aside from a great drafting, impactful signings like Robert Horry and Bruce Bowen really electrified those teams of the early to mid 2000s. The trend continued with players like Danny Green and LaMarcus Aldridge. It is yet to be seen what will the impact of DeMar DeRozan will be on that team, but it's definitely a trend that is anticipated to continue with the Spurs.
I'll agree with you up until like the last 3-4 years. Well, when they traded Kawhi,
Well, I feel like that whole situation was kind of very bizarre and very outside of. People use this term, the culture of what the Spurs were all about.
no, I get you, but the thing is that DeMar DeRozan, not the same player.
No, perhaps not, but I chose him just because it's.
But he was playing.
It was playing, and definitely a namesake guy. It's not a guy who's going to get lost in the shuffle. So, but yeah, I guess I understand.
So in the last few years, the Spurs have been towards the 6-ish, 7-ish. They're still good, but they play a style that doesn't belong, that doesn't fit today. So the game that LaMarcus Aldridge played and the game that DeMar DeRozan played doesn't translate into wins. DeJounte Murray doesn't translate into wins because they don't shoot the three. Over a course of a game, if a team outshoots you 20-10, that's a big difference in points. At least, I don't know how many points it is. But they play a slower pace of basketball because they can't keep up. They have a mix of young and old talent, but the young and old talent do not fit. If that makes any sense. Like DeJounte Murray is a slasher passer. So when he slashes, he needs to pass it out to a 3-ball. DeMar DeRozan not going to hit a 3.
Right. And I understand what you're saying. I think this trend of new basketball, I say new basketball, it sounds stupid, but hey, everyone takes a 3 and it's very fast paced, has really only affected the Spurs' success as of 3 or 4 years. I think it was a team that still contended well until recent history.
Don't get me wrong, the Spurs will never fully rebuild until Popovich is gone. Like Paul said, he didn't think it's going to happen until Duncan takes over, which I kind of agree with. But the point is that until Popovich is over, they're going to continue to be in that 5 to 8 range because they don't have the team to do it. Nobody's jumping out of their seat to go to San Antonio because they don't have a star anymore. Actually, nobody really went out of their seats to go to San Antonio anyway.
Well, and
they were always like a draft our team, let's fucking build it.
And I think, unfortunately, that streak was kind of broken because of the way the Kawhi Leonard thing kind of went down. And I think that kind of that normalcy of that style of team, like you're saying, is now changed. I think perhaps it's expired, but not to be belittled. There's still a lot to be said for that franchise.
Well, so the thing is like we said before, the tune-up and the constant rebuild thing. It's a much larger window to look at than what you guys are looking at. You guys are, if we're looking at the last 4 years, then the Spurs definitely would fall into one of your guys' categories. But over the course of 2 decades, the Spurs are a tune-up team. So let's move on to NHL and let's wrap it up. So NHL Phase 1, Massey.
Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, there is no other answer.
The city of Detroit sucks.
Wow.
Oh, listen, we may have fans there.
I'm sorry, your teams suck.
All of them.
They do.
Yeah, that's true.
Lions, Tigers, Bears, oh my.
No, the Bears are in Chicago, you fucking asshole.
I know. Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, and
Pistons.
Oh my.
So, the Wings. Oh boy, the Red Wings. The Red Wings scored a league low.
Let's put it this way: if the Red Wings were a wing, they'd be boneless.
Scored a
flavor.
league low 2 goals per game. Allowed a league high 3.75 goals per game.
Which is impressive when the Islanders are still a team.
1999. They had the worst penalty kill and the 29th best power play. So they were not on that. They averaged the fewest shots per game and allowed the 5th most. And, it was not a good team. It's not a good team. There is no other answer. You got Larkin on the team. He's still good.
There's some pieces that you can start the rebuild around, or not around, but there's some pieces that you can use towards the starting of the rebuild,
like Zadina and Petruzzi, right? Those are the names that came up the most. I have no idea who they are. Kronek was another one that I found. But there was just nothing really great about that team last year. There were a couple of bright spots, but I mean, going into this year, they're going into They're going into the draft with 10 draft picks, with like 5 in the first 2 rounds, I think. And apparently, it's supposed to be a very deep draft this year. So they're on the way to start. I don't even think they're in a rebuild right now. I think they're moving towards being in a rebuild. That's how bad it is.
No, I can get behind it. Phase 2?
Yes. Sorry,
Yeah, I know what you were doing.
Looking
was-
at Horn.
was looking at something.
Whores.
My Phase 2 NHL team is the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was advised, took the advice, ran with it.
What's your dinner plans for tomorrow?
Wouldn't you like to know?
I would. Just trying to derail your thought.
Lobster sub.
Oh, man.
Hey,
Continue.
Kyle, the New Day podcast this week has Kel Mitchell as their special guest.
Really?
Yeah,
So I gotta watch
it's a podcast.
that. You can watch it on YouTube.
Nope.
You used to be able to watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, Kendall doesn't do it
decided,
anymore.
Kyle decided he didn't want to do a YouTube channel anymore. The real shit thing is that we haven't been on air this whole time.
Oh, my
I
God.
tell you, there's some weeks where I really feel like we haven't been.
It's just Kendall doesn't turn the light on.
Yeah.
Ever.
It doesn't work.
What'd you do?
It's broken.
You broke it.
He didn't break it.
It could be repaired. I just have to bring it into the shop.
Can
I.e.,
you believe
his
that Kendall
dad's
broke it?
house.
Can we segue back to the Spurs for half a second?
Oh, wow.
I just saw something very funny on Reddit. One of the
Tim
NBA's
Duncan in the hot tub.
I saw something on the top of the NBA subreddit. Greg Popovich, quote, "The system has to change." The top top comment was finally admitting they need to shoot more threes. I thought it was very funny.
I agree.
Continue on, Mark.
That humors me.
But I mean, the Canucks added some depth in signing. Where did I write here? Mark Michalis
I'll give it to you.
and Will Lockwood. But no, 2 young guys adds depth to the team. Their defense is pretty young, but their big thing is they got to add more talent without derailing the current chemistry.
I like it.
Kyle, refute it, please.
They're a team. They're kind of like a traditional Phase 2 team. Like they're a team that if things went their way, I mean, granted everything is different because of the whole pandemic, but if things went their way this season in the regular season, they could have been a playoff team. But things would have had to go their way on top of them doing their job. But 2 years from now, they very well could be that third seed division type guy making the push for the 2, bypass the wild card altogether. They're getting much closer. They're progressing very well. Phase 3.
That was a spot on.
Yeah, you did a good job, Mark. Way
Phase
better
three,
than this next one.
I have the New York Rangers.
Boo! He has Shane for help, just so you know.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I did like all the research. You just told me the team.
No.
Before
Shane sent him that yellow notepad.
everything.
Are you going to read us their roster, too?
No, maybe. Before the pandemic, they were 37-28 with 5 overtime losses. They were at 79 points. They were currently standing in 10th place. 2018-2019 season, they were 32-36, 14 overtime losses and 78 points. In 2017-2018, they were 34-39 with 9 overtime losses, 77 points.
They pretty much were the epitome of consistency.
Yeah. So this year, this past offseason, they were able to acquire Armidi Panarin,
You got the last one right. Artemi.
Huh.
They called him the Bread Man because the first time he played a game, the commentator for the Blackhawks called him Artemi Panera. So his nickname became the Bread Man.
Panarin.
You're a good name.
Thank you.
They also signed Adam Fox. They drafted Capo Keiko. And they signed defenseman Jacob Trouba. I'm not going to go over the lines. I have it here.
I wrote them down.
After Paul showed me a website that was really cool.
It was Wikipedia.
No.
No, I know of a hockey website actually that it lists at the time they do constant updates the lineups and the different offensive and defensive lines.
That's cool.
And where they rank versus other first, second, third, fourth offensive lines in the league.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Take
no.
that hockey reference.
Yeah, I'm going to say it.
No, it is hockey reference. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Their first line is ranked 10th in the league. Their second line is ranked 9th. And their third line is ranked 31st.
Kyle, there's no way you would know who might be able to fix this team via free agency this coming season, do you?
I do.
Oh, wow. Please enlighten us.
I will get into it.
I gave him this answer.
I have 2 players. One Paul gave me.
The other one's wrong.
I don't think so.
I'm just kidding.
The first guy was Evgeny Dadonov.
Was lemon tea? No.
So throughout this year, he had 25 goals, 22 assists, which equals up to 47 points. Quote unquote, they said he's a very good third wheel.
I'm not laughing at you, Kyle. I'm laughing at Kendall.
Kendall's having a tough time over there.
I guess why would you say quote unquote? Just say what you're gonna say.
It wasn't me saying it.
But still.
He's a very good third player on the team.
Morton Screamery.
Because they have Panarin and they have Ziminad. How do you say it?
That is what a joke over.
I know. Yeah, listen, you did a good job. Everything's getting me for some reason.
Yeah, you're a fucking asshole.
Oh, wow.
He would kind of play the same role with the Rangers as he would with the Panthers. He would just be like the third guy to, like, if they need a goal, give him depth at that position.
Just hold it, Kendall.
And then another one I said was Mike Hoffman, another Panther player. He played the same position as Panarin, but that can give them depth at the first line or the second line. He ranked 16th in goals since 2014, 2015. He's a sniper, so like it would help them score more goals. That's their biggest weakness is scoring. So being able to play off of Ziminad or Panarin going up to the first line, it would help them be able to score more than just on the first line. I think the Rangers could benefit from Hoffman a lot because they just need more scoring. The defense is young. You don't really want to mess with that at the moment. I just think that they should get a couple more wingers to play alongside of the centers that they have.
Not bad. Not bad.
Beer in my eye.
I agree with you that they need more scoring. The difference is, I think they have the scoring. They just need the playmakers. Because right now their scorers are too busy playmaking, and they're better scorers than playmakers. Artemi Panarin was at his best in Chicago because Patrick Kane always knew where he was, and no matter what he did, he was going to score. So, but I like it. Good job, Souls. Constant rebuild team. We're going to go ahead and go the Boston Bruins. A team not to be confused in the tune-up category if Kendall did it. Did you do the Boston Bruins?
I did not.
Good for you. They have bounced around a little bit since 2000 with 6 first-place finishes, 3 seconds, 4 thirds, 2 fourths, and 3 fifths. They've had a very impressive amount of playoff appearances, including 2 Stanley Cup losses and 1 Stanley Cup win. Who the hell did they beat in the Stanley Cup? I forget.
Vancouver.
They lost to the Lightning and they lost to the Blackhawks. They constantly win, and then they, if they do go on a little bit of skid. They regroup real quickly. They rebuild, whether it's free agency, drafting. They're great at drafting. They're great at retaining their guys more recently. That was definitely more of a problem in the past, retaining all the talent that they had. Sorry, I'm pulling up this note that I had on my phone. Wow, that's weird. Just got a flashlight. But they've moved around coaches a little bit more recently, earlier in the decade, and then they found Claude Julien, who gave them a lot of success, and then eventually Claude Julien found his way out the door. But they haven't bounced coaches around a lot since then. They've had some success and some failure in free agency. Like I said, they've been doing better at retaining their guys like Pasternak and Bergeron and Marchand, even Chara, who's aging like a fucking flower. And what I mean is he's dead in 3 weeks. But
You just called him a flower.
in years past, though, that there has been a lot of talent that has walked out the Boston doors, the TD Garden front gates, including Johnny Boychuk and Tyler Seguin and Blake Wheeler, all members of the Stanley Cup winning team, as well as Milan Lucic and future Hall of Famer and longtime San Jose Shark Joe Thornton. So they have lost a lot of very impressive talent over the years, as does any club that
Tim Thomas.
Any club that goes out and wins, there's casualties due to cap, due to all kinds of things. Like Kyle says,
Can't pay everybody.
guy ate a hot dog in Oregon once, so naturally he's going to go play for the North Dakota team because that hot dog was made in North Dakota, and he wants to get more of them. It makes sense, right?
Somebody gets it.
Yeah, but I just think the Bruins are kind of like there isn't a lot of downtime for them. They always find themselves doing well, unless they find themselves in the Stanley Cup playoffs as the second seed in their division. Then it's no bueno. Then they lose.
Correct.
Kendall?
Good assessment. Mine for the tune-up team.
Paul, very good job.
Thanks, bro.
Got you.
I mean, could you imagine if Paul did a bad job on the guy who knows the most about the sport?
Well,
We finished last in our fantasy hockey league.
But that doesn't matter. I
I
mean,
didn't pay attention.
I
to
know,
it.
I
right.
I mean, Kendall's done pretty bad at football before,
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's
All
not
the
our football.
time.
He's not our football expert.
Yikes.
Kendall, Rebecca's taught you everything you know about football. She
Yikes.
wanted to be Jerome Bettis.
This is true. My whole life story is a joke.
She is Jerome Bettis.
I'm out. Mess, you ruining it. Just joking. All right,
I
mine.
ruin everything, Kendall. It's fine.
No, not true.
She's more Frank Gore, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh,
Heavy-handed.
Penis.
Heavy-handed. Is that what you said? All right. I chose the Pittsburgh Penguins as my tune-up team. Since 1990, the Penguins have been in the playoffs every year except the 4-year span from 2001 to 2005, with the 05 season having a midseason cancellation.
I think they're currently top 10 in longest continuous playoff run, streak.
Yeah.
13 seasons, I think it is. Well, I mean, you just said, 05?
Yeah, I guess it would be 06.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
what
06
did
would
we
make
say?
sense because it'll be 13 years. Yep, I think it's 13 years.
In this time, they've won 5 out of 6 trips to the Stanley Cup, touting 13 100-point seasons, which is fairly.
Yeah, but how many President's trophies?
I did not get that information.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. But, it put him in the running many
No,
times.
it doesn't take away from them.
Looking at kind of like an all-decade team for the Penguins, I kind of was looking at more of the 2010 to 2020. It's kind of like a halfway. But players like Sidney Crosby, Phil Kessel, Chris Letang, Brooks Orpik, Marc-Andre Fleury, all playing close to 100 games or better. Sidney Crosby, I thought this was an interesting statistic, averaging basically a point per game through his career as my goodness, Penguin. God, it's a reflex right there.
Well, same color scheme.
Not to shut a private stock.
Yes, well, I've accumulated a couple tonight. The Penguins have also made important moves in free agency, signing players like James Neal and Phil Kessel, who were major signings and impactful to the Penguins. Though James Neal was not entirely as impactful right away. I thought this is a joke that I didn't understand. Maybe Paul could explain it better. Evgeny Malkin, always snubbed from all time teams, is an important member of the Penguins.
It's not a joke.
I didn't understand.
Where's
No,
the punchline here?
No,
I was trying to say. I read it somewhere and I wrote it down.
Okay. So the world was shown in the 94 season how good Scottie Pippen really is. MVP votes, All-Star, led the Jordanless Bulls to the playoffs. And then Jordan came back. And Pippen became Pippen again. That's what Malkin is.
Oh,
He plays with Sidney Crosby.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes more sense.
Malkin could be the best guy on his own team. But he doesn't. It's like Brad Marchand. Like Brad Marchand could be the best guy on a lot of hockey teams right now, but he plays with Patrice Bergeron. Different position, they do different things. I mean, Malkin and Crosby have more similarities, and so like position, which makes it even harder because Malkin, you can see the things he does because he's a center, but because he's not a first line center, because you have Crosby, you're putting him up. You can't put him up against second wing or second line centers because he's a first line center, but he doesn't get all the ice time that a traditional first wing center gets.
Would they ever play together?
No, they're centers.
Okay.
They're centers. They're not.
But that's my my tune-up team.
Good team.
It's your douche.
I just thought of a bracket we could do. Best names in sports.
Best teams.
Best names.
Best names.
Not like nicknames, just like actual sports names.
Book Pow.
Steve Yastrzemski.
So stuff like that. You could break it up into the 4 major sports and then just have a bracket go down into.
It's going to be all baseball, really. I mean, Matt Shoemaker. I mean, come on.
Matt Stairs.
I'm a big Honus Wagner guy.
There's so many good names in baseball.
Oh, now.
Oh, now.
Ichiro Suzuki.
James Honda.
James Honda.
Jimmy Hyundai. Executive Kia. Another team that's constantly rebuilding and not winning. No, I'm just kidding. Jeff, if by any chance you're listening, we love you.
We don't like your teams.
That's not true. I like the Pirates.
Straight to Saints.
No.
Fuck the Saints.
I feel bad for the Knicks. And
I pity
fuck the Predators.
Is he a Predators fan?
Yeah. Every single player, the first NHL game that Jeff ever played, every single player on the Predators that year was set to always accept fights. You ever played NHL with Jeff? He hits triangle more than anybody I've ever met in my life.
He's into the fish and the fights. That's basically what he's about.
So there's our rebuild. I hope it wasn't too long-winded and boring. I thought it would be something different. There's obviously not a lot of sports to talk about right now.
Well, we covered a lot of information.
I thought it was something different.
Yeah.
Mock seems to hate it.
No, I like it. I'm starting to fade out. Trying to.
You know what the problem is? You got to get back into your drinking shit.
Well, the problem is I wake up at 5
AM or PM?
a.m.
Or PM?
a.m.
I used to wake up at 5 on the reg. And you know what I did?
Drank until 4.
Drank until 4. For people listening to the show, that might be true.
He was like the X Games version of I Love College.
Oh, man.
Kelly, you were soft in college.
Yeah, except
What?
He was.
I had better years than others. My
Let me tell you
summer year, I
something.
puked
There
a
was
lot.
one time we went to a party where Kendall couldn't even get down a second Bush Light, and Rebecca was already a handle deep into vodka.
God, I wish that was true.
why?
I don't know. I'm just saying stuff.
I was just true too.
I'm just saying stuff.
Trying to Fill the airwaves here.
All right, you guys want to do a GSWD point?
Yeah.
We got round out the routes for the show.
Yeah.
I think we'll keep it in the same
That's
fashion.
Keep it going.
All right, so the first week we did, I think the first week we did AFC rushing leaders, right?
Yeah.
And then last week we did AFC receiving leaders.
Yeah.
So you guys can pick from the cream of the crop type of deal.
NFC this week?
You guys pick.
Whatever.
So there's available left. We have NFC rushing and receiving. And then we have AFC and NFC for passing leaders, passer ratings, TD to interception ratios, and then we also have AFC completion percentage.
Let's do NFC receivers.
I think an NFC sack leaders.
That's not. That wasn't something I said.
I wish it was.
You'd be bad at it.
I could probably get like good names.
You'd still be bad at it. You're a dumb whore.
You know, you guys want to do NFC?
Do the receiving one.
All right.
NFC receiving?
Kyle's just like, "Yep, worked for me, I guess."
Massey, don't beat me. I gave you $1.
So I think the longer this goes on, the more I'm not going to be part of these points. I'm already about to be three opportunities behind.
Well, I tell you what, you might be able to catch me.
We don't have any.
Exactly.
Neither do I.
Kendall has 6.
He's 6.
Yeah, he bought me a bottle of bourbon, so I awarded him 5 extra points.
All right. I'll buy you a steak
Rat.
and cheese from anywhere in the world.
You bought me a what?
Steak and cheese.
I'll show you a dead rat anywhere in the world.
Well, mind you, he said anywhere in the world. I wonder what the steak and cheeses are like in Fiji.
I thought you were going to say Egypt.
No, Chad.
All right,
Sandy.
NFC receiving leaders. All right. So we're going to start off by going Mass to Mock. So Mass, Kendall, Kyle, Mock. And then Snake and then we'll go by division. Same as always. All right. And remember, there's a bonus point if you can get a name in every single team in the division. All right, so we're going to start off with the AFC West, the West.
NFC?
The NFC West. Massey.
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks.
All-time leading receivers for the Seattle Seahawks.
Fucking love this kid. Let me see if I can get my chin dimple to fluctuate for you. Can you flex your chin dimple?
No.
Can you let next time we go to Pittsburgh? Can you let Kendall do a body shot off of it of Graves?
Sure.
It's
It's not going to be very much.
It was just funny because like Mox did that laugh, but like far enough away where it was very like duck sounding. All right, come on, Mass.
Baldwin's got to be up there, right?
What do you mean, right? Is Baldwin your guess?
DK
Yes.
Metcalf.
All right, so Mass guesses Doug Baldwin for 3 points.
He's only number 3.
See, senor. Kendall
Steve Largent.
for 1 point.
You
I
bitch.
fucking forgot about Steve Largent.
You bitch.
Kyle? Tell you what, Kendall was... I'm going to give you an honest answer here. Kendall was the best bet at getting the next guy. The only other guy left.
You had a feeling.
Do you know who it is? Kendall?
I'm kind of blanking. I kind of put all my chips in his Largent.
Joey Galway.
Wrong, not even top 5. I was like, Marshawn Lynch.
No. I was going to say Sean Alexander.
Also a running back.
I know he's a running back.
No, I know you know that. I'm just saying for the listeners. You don't know how many Scandinavians we have listening to this. This is stupid
Listen,
sport.
I needed the defense.
Why don't they play this on ice? It'd be more fun.
So we're looking for the number 2 guy?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So you pass?
Percy Harvin.
No. Number 2 guy, Brian Blades.
Actually, I don't think I would have got that.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't have.
That was unfortunate. Rebecca's getting it.
You guys both took my answers, you cockbags.
All right, which team do I have now to get wrong?
Well, hold on. I'm waiting for Rebecca to hand me my pen. Thank you, Rebecca. Mock, you're going to go ahead and lead us off with the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm going to go ahead and take my 1 point and say Jerry Rice.
For 2 points.
He's second.
No.
Let's say.
Can you imagine?
Kyle?
Terrell Owens.
Ocho
For
Cinco.
2 points. It's Ocho Cinco. Kendall?
Ocho Cinco. Chad Johnson. Emmanuel Sanders. Me. Frank Gore.
Mr. Dallas Clark.
Incorrect.
Damn.
17th.
You sure that was his name?
It's
don't know.
not.
Wasn't
Massey?
there Dallas Clark in Indianapolis?
Do we want to give Kendall a chance to recorrect his
No.
You know,
No.
I've had a couple beers, so I think I
name?
kind
Because
of
Kendall.
Massey, just guess.
Because Kendall, it's Dwight Clark.
I think it's Dwight Clark, and I regret my answer.
Massey, here's the thing.
Dallas Keuchel.
We've been doing a lot of these from Massey being at home. He's been averaging about like 9 3-points a game
You see the
So,
computer?
so here's the thing. Here's the reason why I know about Dwight Clark.
because
I
they
just
said
looked
it's
the
not
NFL
Dallas before you got a chance to guess.
That too. But I
Pretty
just
bummed
used the
out I blew
NFL
that.
spotlight on the catch.
Pretty bummed out that I knew that.
On the
and-
catch?
and
Oh,
two-
you mean in the playoffs for the 49ers?
Yeah.
Do you have
with
the play up right
yeah,
now, Massey?
That wasn't Dwight Clark. That was Jim Graham.
Can I redeem
James.
my giving Kyle points from the previous round to get that one back?
And take them away from Mass? No, you can't take points away from somebody.
No, but I donated Lee Evans to Kyle last round. I just want my points back now.
They weren't your points. You fucked up.
Damn.
All right, Mass.
Yeah.
The Rams of Los Angeles.
I don't know which one of the two I want to pick.
I gotta tell you, I wish they were the San Diego Rams. It's so stupid, but I love it. The
Yes,
Boise,
Isaac Bruce.
the Boise Rams.
Ooh.
Isaac Bruce for 1 point.
All right, so he's the one.
That's why I said 1 point. Yep.
Ooh, Kendall's
Kendall.
gonna pick.
Torrey Holt and Dwight Clark for the 49ers. Thank
All right,
you.
now you get no points.
Oh.
Or do you want your 2 points and retract the Dwight Clark statement?
No, I want them both because I deserve them.
So you get no points?
No, I want them both. All
Yeah.
the points.
All right, you get 2 points.
All the points.
You have 2 points. Go.
Give me a minute.
You want a hint?
Yeah.
No shot. There's no shot you get this. That's your hint. Your hint is that there is absolutely 0% chance you get any of the 3 guys left on this list.
Smith.
I could probably get one of them.
It's not Smith. Mock? Well, after a nice ball stretch.
I tell you, it's getting soupy in these sweatpants.
I don't know why I wore sweatpants. I gotta tell you, the best decision I ever made was not wearing shoes. I feel like Matt Riddle.
We're talking third on the list here. I'm allowed to ask a question, right?
Well, you can ask the question, and then I'll let you know if it's too much information.
What's his name?
No. Was this a pre-Kurt Warner receiver?
I've never heard of him.
You know what's funny? No matter what you were going to say, it wasn't going to help me at all. We're going to go ahead and lock in Tavon Austin.
Oh,
No. Incorrect. Massey, do you care to guess? One of the last 3, since you said you think you know one?
was it Flipper Anderson?
No.
No.
That's a Dolphin?
Henry Ellard was number 3.
Never heard of
You
him.
guys got the easy points.
We did. No doubt.
I did not.
Big fan of number 5, Jack Snow.
Ooh.
All right,
That's pretty good.
Mock.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead it off for the Cardinals?
Ooh. I'll take my point and Larry Fitzgerald.
Ooh, incorrect. It's DeAndre Hopkins. Cup?
Anquan Bolton.
Incorrect. Numero 4.
I thought
You know, Kyle spent the day on Sunday with his girlfriend, and he learned how to make homemade flour tortillas.
Really?
I
No.
tell you what, that was just as funny now as it was in the car on the way here.
He made homemade flour tortillas, learned how to make them so he can make a Royce Campoyo. I said in the car to Mock and Mock tried to verify, but I just picture Kyle going in because Kyle's not a very cultured person outside of the white community, and I just picture Kyle going into his Puerto Rican girlfriend's house, and her mother's there, and he's just like he looks at her and he just gives her a hug and like chili con queso.
Man,
No.
I'm pretty bummed. I thought really you knew how to make tortillas. I was all about it.
Yo necesito el baño rapido.
How did you get the fucking 3-point question right, huh?
Wow, I'm so hurt.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, you're up.
Give you a beer. Shut up.
Wow. Actually, I really thought Anquan Bolden was on this list.
Yeah, so did I.
So
That's
did
why I
I.
said it. Couldn't name me another
I
fucking
knew it
Cardinal
wasn't.
receiver.
I knew it. That's why I went with Larry.
I'm so beat up about the Dwight Clark. That's
Oh my
It's
God.
going to affect the rest of my game.
You're gonna go home and hit.
It's funny because I made punishments for each of you. If you lose, your punishment is watching us dump out 18 rack of High Life each.
I don't like that at all.
And you have to pay
so
for it.
much beer.
I'm going to pass just to not hold up the game.
Okay. Probably the smartest move. You lose 10 points for passing, though. 10 GSWD points.
Oh, no. I'm the neg.
Massey, I see you have 2 computer screens up and a phone, so let me know. I'm just kidding. Fucking
I'm
with
on
you.
Reddit.
Oh, they could be on Reddit. I
Um,
found these lists on Reddit.
Oh, did you?
No. Go ahead.
I have no idea. I don't know anything. Anquan Bolden was going to, I guess.
All right, number 2 was Roy Green, and number 3 was Jackie Smith.
I know Jackie Smith.
Did you know any of
I
those,
figured-
Kendall?
I
I
knew
don't know why
Jackie
I know,
Smith,
but
but
I
I
know
didn't
the name.
think he was
Yeah, you're a son of a bitch.
Okay.
So number 5 was Pat Tilley.
I was going to say Pat Tillman.
He was a safety, wasn't he?
Yeah, you dick.
All right, so after the first divisional round, we have in last place, tied for 2 points each, Souls and Mock. Then Kendall with 3 and Massey with 7. No bonus points awarded.
Imagine shooting.
All right, so now we're going to go Kyle, Mock, Massey, Kendall, and snake order. So, hey, Soulsy, why don't you lead us off? NFC East. Washington Redskins.
Did the hardest.
I mean, for 2 and 3, yeah, but you should know 1.
You're right.
But I don't. This is one of those teams where I can see like one finding its like nobody getting anything right and Kendall just getting like the 1-pointer.
Because they weren't good in our lifetime.
Santana Moss.
Incorrect. There's 4.
Yikes.
Mock? Like if you really don't know, you can just pass. There's no,
Hold on,
there's
hold
no
on,
shame
hold
in
on.
passing. How does this sound? Okay.
Probably me rocking in my chair.
Man. See, I was hoping Kyle wasn't going to say Santana Moss.
You can ask again.
Good. I might have moved up.
Yeah.
Moving on up. Moving on up.
Pierre Garcon.
Ooh, good guess. No. Mass?
Say Antoine Rendelel.
I'm not going to say Antoine Rendelel.
You did.
Antoine Rendelel. I'm Tony Gonzalez. Jared Allen Culinary Institute. That's my favorite.
I don't know. Chris Cooley.
No.
I don't have anybody.
Really?
Can I guess again?
So you're passing?
I'm going to pass.
All right. Well, no, you can't guess again.
Can I just say a name?
Sure.
Is it Lavernius Coles?
No. Number 3 is Gary Clark. Number 2 is C. Taylor, not Chester Taylor. Number 1's Art Monk.
Art Monk. Fuck.
Well, I forgot
Everybody
about
should have
him.
known Art Monk.
Where'd you go, Kendall?
I know. Well, I'll tell you what. I would have played better if we did this first.
Hey, spoiler. No bonus points this round. All right, so Kendall, lead it off for the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Philadelphia
Yes.
Eagles.
The guy from Invincible, right?
Mark Wahlberg.
He said it, not me.
Thanks.
Is Chris Carter on the list?
Like the whole thing or the Eagles list?
The Eagles list.
I can't tell you if he's on the list.
Is Chris Carter my pick? He's my pick.
No.
Is Chris Carter right?
And to answer your previous question, no, he's on the list. Massey?
Harold Carmichael, the like 7-foot dude.
I'll
1
take
point.
my time there. He used the restroom.
Zach Ertz.
5.
Oof.
Points?
-3.
Terrell Owens.
Not on the list.
Oh, all right.
All right, so Carmichael was 1. Pete Ratcliffe was 2. Mike
Who?
Quick was 3. Deshaun Jackson at 4.
I forgot
Deshaun
about that
Jackson
little
close?
Fucking asshole.
Deshaun Jackson. Yes, Deshaun Jackson will be an Eagle this year, correct?
Yeah.
If Deshaun Jackson can catch for 200 yards, he'll move into 3rd.
Oh wow. So very close.
Yeah, unfortunately, he gets injured. So who's up
Where was
first?
Jared Macklin on the
Mock.
list?
Not me.
Kyle, the New York Football Cowboys, Giants. Sorry. All right, New York Football Giants
Amani Toomer.
for 1 point.
I'll fucking take it.
Maxine Washable on the cloak. Yeah, I made up one of those words that you hate when Kyle pronounces it wrong all the time. I made one up for him, and he's all about it now. What is it, Kyle?
Orange.
Orange. Yes.
Hakeem Nicks.
Congratulations. You got nothing.
Really?
Nah. Sorry. Not even on the list. Mass?
Beckham?
2 points.
I might know the other name.
The current Steelers wide receivers coach.
Yep. 3 points. One guy left.
I'm blanking real hard this game.
Just trying to stay awake.
You are?
I'm struggling.
Let me give you a quick ball tap.
No, it's okay.
It'll wake you up.
No, it's cool.
I give you a little.
No, thank you.
Kyle.
Hmm.
Show him coach.
No.
Come on.
Remember how you showed me earlier how coach had that thing hanging out of his mouth?
Yeah.
He also got his tongue pierced, too, during quarantine.
Oh.
I don't think it is. I'm just gonna say Plaxico Burrs.
Incorrect.
Was it?
Is it Ike Hilliard?
No.
Oh, okay.
Gifford.
Oh, yeah.
And Tiki Barber and Joe Morrison. All right.
Tiki was running back then, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, but he still can catch passes. It's part of the game.
Yeah. Giants had a better
But to be
receiving core
fourth?
throughout their careers.
Yeah, wait till we get to the Falcons. There's an offensive lineman that's 3rd.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, Cowboys. Kendall.
Michael Irvin.
2 points. Mass?
Jason Witton.
1 point. Mock?
Looking for number 3.
Mm-hmm. Si, senor.
Cool.
Chili con queso.
Sounds good.
¿Dónde estás el baño?
Man, I'm blanking hard.
I got 2 names. Say one of them.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna.
Yeah, you will.
Michael Gallup.
No, the guy I want to say, I know he's not on there, but I
Terrell
can't get him out of my
Owens.
head. I can't get him out of my head.
Say it.
Hold on.
Like, there's no shot I guess anybody else.
I know.
But give me a
It's
second.
It's Terrell Owens.
Terrell Owens?
Yeah,
Nope.
he's not on there.
Des Bryant.
No, by 3 yards.
Really?
You know, that's the guy I was trying to think
Tony
of.
Hill.
Who the fuck is Tony Hill?
The guy above Des Bryant by
I
3
get that
yards.
now.
All right, so after 2 rounds, you guys are doing terrible this one.
No, me and Mark are doing terrible.
No, everyone's
I'm
doing
having a
terrible.
rough night over here.
Kyle's got 3 points in 3rd place. Mock's still in last with 2. Massey has increased his point total from 7 to 10. And Kendall has increased his from 3 to 5. So
I'm catching you, you bitch.
I deserve
Coming
Dwight
for you.
Clark.
You don't. You fucked up.
I donated points last game.
All right, so now
Not
we
to me.
To me, bitch.
now we go mock to mass. So mock
Yeah.
Kyle, Kendall, mass. All right, mock, you ready?
What division?
I haven't told you yet.
Oh.
It said you ready.
Yeah.
All right.
Atlanta Falcons.
NFC South. Tampa Bay Bucks.
Is Mike Evans on there?
I can't tell you that. It has to be your guess.
No, that's my guess.
Mike Evans?
Yeah.
1 point.
What was
Keyshawn
surprised?
Johnson.
Incorrect.
What the fuck?
Not even on the list.
Vincent Jackson.
Wrong. Number 4.
How? He played there way less than Keyshawn.
Joey Galloway.
Not on the list.
Langston.
Number 2 is Mark Carrier. Number 3, Kevin House.
They all suck.
All right, let's move on to Mock. Right now, you could potentially get a bonus point still. It's in there. All right, so Mass. Carolina Panthers.
Olsen.
3 points.
Yikes.
Nope.
Steve Smith.
1 point.
I
Who should
forgot
Muhammad?
Steve Smith played in.
2 points.
I forgot Steve Smith played in Carolina.
Cool round, guys. Cool round.
All right, Mock.
I think I should just get a point.
You didn't get a chance to guess.
Guess
If
what?
you can get the fourth place thing, we'll give you 4 points.
I'll tell you what. If you can get the 4th place guy, I'll give you 100 points. If you can guess the 4th place guy, I'll give you 5 GSWD points right now. But if you get it wrong, you lose all the points you have in this game.
Pass.
All right.
Who was 4th place?
Wesley Wells.
Who?
Come on, you would
Dude,
know.
West Holmes.
And then Mark Carrier was really
That's the guy
running
who
that
was just
division
like
down.
him.
All right, Mock. The New Orleans Crybabies. We're really shitting on Jeff this show now, like unintentionally. I didn't even mean to.
Marquise Colston.
Uno point, sir. Yep.
Said Colston? No.
I believe it was a 7-pointer.
Actually, it was a game clincher.
Lance Moore.
Incorrect. Not on the list.
I should have said that fucking guy.
I love this game. Just Kyle's always. I should have just said that guy.
You know the guy I think
Mock is
you're
just
probably
swaying
thinking of,
to
I
stay
can't
awake
remember
right
his
now.
name.
I'm fading
Will
hard.
Kendall?
The guy that Kyle is probably thinking of, I can't remember his name. He played there forever.
Jeremy Shockey.
No.
Taysom Hill.
Nope. Oh my god, I can't remember the guy's
Come
name.
on. Come on. Come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Guess.
If I describe the player.
No, just guess the name. Guess
Just
the
say
name.
Ted Ginn and be done with it.
No. I can't remember his name.
I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. 2, 1. Done.
Jeffrey Henderson.
No.
That's not who I wanted.
Massey?
Michael Thomas up there?
I can't answer that. I can only tell you if it's right or wrong if you guess it.
Michael Thomas.
Incorrect.
Can I guess the other one?
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham.
No.
No, that's not what I wanted.
Eric Martin was second. Joe Horn third.
Joe Horn.
I forgot about all that
Fuck,
guy.
I forgot about Joe
That's the
Horn.
exact guy I wanted. You know how I described him? The guy scored a touchdown. He broke in the flip phone for the first time and called the end zone.
I tell you what.
Somebody get this guy another beer.
Really?
I tell you. Joe Horn recently lit me up in a game of ESPN 2K5.
All right. So who's first? Mass, right?
Yep.
Falcons.
This is what pisses me off.
No.
I think I know two of them.
Okay.
Roddy White.
2 points.
There's one.
Mass is going for the kill shot.
I just want the point. Don't say it.
I'm trying to get back into this.
Mock is essentially sitting at 10 right now, being like, Christian McCaffrey, fall.
Andre Rison,
Oh, good name though.
Incorrect.
number 4.
5.
Damn.
Julio Jones.
1.
Tony Gonzalez.
Incorrect.
Andre Rison, good
The
name
third
though.
one,
Kendall.
Algie.
I know.
Duncan.
I was
Number
kind of
3 is-
banking on him.
Number 3 is T. Mathis.
That's
Who?
what they called Tony.
Tony Mathis. And then number 4 is Jenkins.
Jeff.
Jeff Jenkins. All right, so after a very uneventful round here, Kendall's really shitting the bed here. He's averaging like 1 correct answer around.
We should have done this first.
Mock jumped up to 4 points.
We should have started at 8.
Kyle jumped up to 6 points. Kendall is at 6 points. And Massey, a very comfortable lead at 15.
Can't wait for next week when you're not next to your computers.
No, he brings those.
Okay.
He brings the computer here. And he's going to be sitting on that end now. Mass, I took your seat, by the way. I kind of like it. You want to switch seats?
No.
All right. So now it's Kendall to Kyle.
Sure.
You went first.
Who went first last time?
No, I'm saying the last time you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Kendall. Vikings.
Vikings. Randy Moss for 2 points.
Correct.
Bullshit. Kendall's cheating.
Chris.
Yes, him.
Randy Moss.
No, Chris Carter.
Mock. Well, 1 point. Sorry, Mass. 1
I
point.
was about to say, is that 1 or 3?
Mock.
So we're looking for the 3-pointer.
Kendall got way more time than that.
Go ahead and write it in. 3 points. Matt Asiata.
Right. And Kyle.
Sidney Rice.
Incorrect.
Sonorous Rice.
A Carter.
Norris.
I thought Kendall would have liked my answer.
A Carter, and then Jake Reed and Sean White. All right, Kyle. Packers.
Of a Green Bay.
Javon Walker.
Incorrect.
Really?
Is my guess?
Not on the list. Yeah.
Jordy Nelson.
Incorrect.
Contested.
A lot of Bart Starr players.
Denied. Mass.
Donald Driver.
1 point.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him.
That's what I meant.
You know, he was a Giant for a year.
Sterling Sharp.
3 points.
Oh, forgot about Sterling Sharp. He's the guy who broke his neck, right?
Jermichael Finley.
Oh, is that Jermichael Finley?
Yeah,
Kendall.
the Steelers wanted him.
Lions.
Oh, I know this.
Tigers and Bears.
Calvin Johnson.
1 point.
Homer answer.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to snatch him up. I blew this entire game. I shouldn't be in the position I'm in.
This drive
I
home
deserve,
is going to
I deserve 5
You're gonna
points.
pass out.
Not a beer.
Mass.
Oh, it's my go. Golden
What
Tate.
team?
No. You can have, there's a Finch sour in there. You can have that.
Finch
Like
Sour.
Finch Brewery.
Oh, I was
It's
gonna
hard
say,
to
I was like,
drink.
I've never even heard of what that is.
Mock.
Lions, right?
Tigers and Bears.
Pretty much I've exhausted my Lions receivers.
Think of future receivers. Make them up.
Marvin Jones.
Incorrect.
Can I ask a
4.
question?
I can tell you yes or no.
Is this one of your favorite analysts or player of all time?
No.
Barry Sanders.
Who are you going to go with?
Nate Burleson.
Oh.
Oh, good name.
Moore and Morton.
I don't want any of those.
All right, Kyle.
Well, Barry Sanders on the list.
Rounded out with the Chicago Bears, whose all top 3 guys combined yards don't even come within 4,000 of Larry Fitzgerald's career totals.
You said combined?
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall.
The leading guy has 5,059 yards as a Bear.
Brandon Marshall.
Incorrect.
Alshon Jeffrey?
3 points.
Fucking bullshit. Mock beat me.
By 1 point. And unfortunately, that 3-pointer would have put Kendall in the lead. Unfortunately, Mass just spun the wheel of unfortunatality. He loses 10 points if he doesn't get it right at all.
Yeah, bitch.
Nice.
Mock wins.
And then, yeah, those points go to Mock.
I'm on Mock's side now.
Why? Because you beat him?
No, I lose all the time.
Heel turn.
Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan. It was all over again.
Kendall, how much time you want us to buy you?
It's not his turn. It's Mass's turn.
Oh,
Oh,
Mass,
my
how much
turn?
time you want us to buy you?
Say that again?
Hurry up, so I gotta pee.
Hurry up, so I
Walter
have
Payton.
to pee. Whoa, who?
Walter Payton.
No, 4th.
No.
Kendall?
I know who the number one guy is, and I just can't remember his name.
Donald Glover.
Eddie Royal.
It is neither of those people.
Donald Glover.
I'm
Paul,
just
can I ask a question after Kendall goes?
Yes.
I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember.
Pass?
Hey,
Here.
All right,
This might help Kendall. Was it a coach of some kind?
It's not Mike Ditka.
Hey, another question. Did I say this name before?
No.
No, this guy's exclusively to the Bears. This is like the Bears guy.
The Bears.
Jimmy Morris and Harlan Hill.
And soon to be Allen Robinson.
Well, considering it's not top 5.
Yeah, not yet, but you will be.
All right, Mass, congratulations. You are now in the lead with 2 GSWD points.
Wait till the fucking actual game, bro, when we do baseball.
I'm just actually coming out here and doing something in the sport that I know because I'm going to suck at the next.
Yeah, football's gonna
Paul,
Wait
next
wait
week-
until we're planning a shindig at Kendall's house once the quarantine thing is over, where we're gonna get the 5 of us together, and we're gonna I have a whole outdoor thing like set up. We're gonna do a little wiffle home run derby, cornhole, beer pong. Kendall's terrible at beer pong. Why would you even point at that guy?
Well to him, cornhole to you.
Hey, I'm not bad at throwing beanbags.
Am I allowed
Beer
to bring
pong,
a ring-
definitely to me.
Am I allowed to bring a ringer for cornhole?
No.
A what?
Like a ringer?
The fuck does that like Johnny Knoxville?
God damn it.
Like what?
The fuck did we get ice cream?
A winger is a shoe-in winner.
A winger.
It's a ringer.
Ringer. She said winger, right? Yeah.
She did.
Like you want to bring a friend?
I'm pretty sure
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
a
this
thing.
isn't Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You can't phone in a friend.
This
What's the
one.
audience think?
Show me potato salad. Oh, that clipped in my own ear. All right.
Because I would have dominated it fucking cornhole if I was allowed to bring a friend.
Yeah, well, good thing we all suck equally. So
Does
you'll be
that
all right.
mean you would have
It
dominated?
sounds like you'd have been carried.
That's right. It's my future wife. She destroys people at cornhole.
I'll murder her.
No, you won't.
No, not a cornhole. Just like.
Oh, in
other
general?
things.
Alright.
I
That's
will
fine.
RKO every beanbag that she throws.
That would get so exhausting. Hey, Kyle's
Oh.
significant other
Oh.
recently didn't know how to. She played cornhole, didn't know how to throw a beanbag.
Who's that?
Who was this?
Kyle's significant other.
Yeah, but I won the game.
She fell down throwing a beanbag.
Oh, no.
So funny.
I won the game.
Yeah,
I would hope so, Kyle, 'cause if
I
you
got into a
lost
serious
that-
conversation with Chris about guns and bounce houses.
Your fault.
Yeah, you're right. So, Mass, you're in the lead with 2 GSWD points. I'd like to play sometime, so if someone wants to come up with a GSWD point for next week.
I was just about to say, if you want to play next week, I'll come up with something.
Or, see, the thing would be, like, it'd be cool to come up with something that, like, I'd like to come up with something that we can all play. Like, some sort of thing. Because, like, you know, trivia, people write down the answers.
Well, the board game will be fun once it happens.
It's never happening.
You think we could do a Sporkle quiz where we each get a if there's something less that we get a point
No,
for every
because
person we
you
name?
can't type the shape.
No, but it's not the point of if I'm typing it. But if we give a name, like we'll go around the list and so hey Kyle, it's your turn to give an answer.
Oh, so, like, if you did, like, top 200, like, touchdown leaders of all time.
Right, exactly.
Like receiving touchdown leaders, and everyone. I mean, that's way too long. It would take forever.
But something in that realm.
I would immediately lead off with Herschel Walker. It's got to be on that list, right?
I'm sure it's got it somewhere.
So, hopefully you guys liked the rebuild segment. Both fans and show members.
It's good.
I hope you guys are all disappointed with Kendall's beer selection tonight.
Wait till you hear it.
And so that leads us to beer reviews. So, Kendall, why don't you go first? Why don't you go backwards, though?
All right, well, I've had
God, he put on his own music.
A very eclectic beer review. I had, if going in reverse order, I had...
That's a very Mass thing to do, to put on your own music for a beer review.
Well, Mass, you could put in your request for your own music for your reviews. I ended with 2 Bud Light Lemons. They were pretty bad for everything you'd expect. In between, when I was doing the golfing show during quarantine, I had from Breckenridge Brewery the Agave Wheat. $70 in the a mixed pack. I've never seen it individually. Breckenridge Brewery, 4.4%. Amber in color. The aroma, it's kind of like got a honey smell and flavor. But basically, it's like a Miller Lite with an agave component. 2 stars, doubtful would get again. Then I had a Bud Light lemon tea again as my second beer. But then I got to the Super Duper Triple Citra via the Souls, who the Souls and Riddle, they both have a pack.
Go fuck yourself and just review the beer.
All right, so Thomas Hooker, $14.89, a 4-pack, 10% alcohol, region CT. From My Bad Eyes, golden in color. Has kind of a citrusy floral aroma and a citrusy flavor. Very tasty. I like triple IPAs. I've had a whole lot of them. Very smooth, kind of a velvety, crisp hoppy, and there's a slight. It's not heavy, but I couldn't imagine drinking a whole bunch of them. In my journal, I was kind of drunk when I wrote it, but I put 5 stars. But absolutely would get again. I think it is worth 5 stars, and to a certain extent, I'm just very bad at judging things. But I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you, Kyle and Paul.
Paul.
What?
Go ahead.
No, Mock goes next. Kyle's definitely going last, so that's for sure.
So I had one of these super duper triple citrus. I thought it was a very good beer. A lot of times triple IPAs are a little rough. This one was pretty good. It was all the bitterness up front with a smooth finish.
That's very funny.
I enjoyed it.
Massey,
Yo,
give me your water thing.
I had Canada Dry Ginger Ale.
Was it cold?
It was, yeah.
Cold ginger ale is like sex in your mouth, though. It's
pretty good.
top notch. I had I actually changed it up a little bit. I had the Super Duper Triple Citra twice. But as aforementioned, Hooker Brewing, blah, 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 colors, flavors, aromas. In my notes, I wrote, very hazy and mild juice masks the 10% very well. And I got the complete opposite from Mock. I got a lot of that hazy juiceness up in the front with, and I quote, tongue-grabbing bitter hops at the end. Because I felt like as I swallowed it, every single bud on the back of my tongue latched onto like a hop flavor, and I got that whole bitterness on the end. But it was extremely enjoyable, high ABV beer. As Mark said, the triples and quadruple IPAs can get very rough because the alcohol content can be so harsh on them because they don't have that barrel age that like stout stew to kind of mask that high percentage. But really well made beer. I still think I'd rather have the Super Duper Double, just because of the more higher flavor profile to it. But this was a top notch beer. Oh, and I gave it 4.5. And I said doubtful I'd get it again because it's limited and I probably won't be able to find it. Just being a realist.
So, I'm a little different than you guys.
You hated it.
No.
Oh.
I didn't think I would find a different beer that I would find as my favorite.
Oh no, we have a new number 1.
New number 1.
Oh my god!
I am shocked.
You're talking about a new number one beer. Kendall's over there shocked. Mock's looking at Demi. More.
This is, I think it's smarter. I think it's superior to Super Duper Double.
Wow.
I am amazed, honestly.
I didn't find.
I'm scared for the 8 more of these that are at home.
I didn't think it was very boozy. I didn't really taste that.
Go in Kyle's room tomorrow. It's gonna be like 7 empty cans and be puking all over himself.
I thought it was very well made, very well taste. Everything was great.
And this beer was this beer was a product of a first for Kyle. Kyle went on his first beer run. We called a few places to see if they had it because it is very limited. And a local spot that I know the owners very well had it, and they took the limit restriction off for us. So we could grab a few 4-packs. And Kyle contributed to his first $50+ beer purchase.
So this doesn't mean I actually have to go looking for this now. It's not just something I can find in stores.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna find it.
No,
Probably
is it
not
already
now.
all gone.
You can beg for one.
I
Kyle,
suppose.
I love you. Can I have one?
Yes.
Cool, thanks.
I'm gonna go pee in detergent.
Oh, Kyle, it's
Just wait for the sign off.
You say it's full?
It's full.
Perfect.
Oh my god!
Hey, if people did need to pee though and like had to get out of here real quick, where could they find us?
Find us on Facebook and Instagram at
hate
Getting
this
Sports
music.
with Drunk. Twitter is GSWD_4.
Make sure you use the hashtag GSWD for all your daily uses, whether it's unlocking a new favorite beer in your mystery cooler or, just filling up a Tide bottle with urine.
Subscribe on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Spotify.
Wherever you can bounce vice scripts off your fingers, you can find us.
Yeah.
Also on Spreaker.
Get us on Spreaker. Be sure to check out the Peter Pino Show Wednesday, 7:30 to 10:30. What are you looking at me for?
Keep going. Keep going.
He's like because of the music.
No, the music's pretty terrible.
It's the names you can't remember.
Well, no, you got the 4 Live crew on Sunday, and it's Joe. Oh, it's Antonio. I almost said Antonelli. If Kyle didn't say Antonio,
For the umpteenth time.
I don't know what it is. I can't get off Phil's name. But yeah, check out PPRN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. I don't know what we're gonna do
Mark
yet.
has a segment.
We don't know what we're gonna do next week, but we'll figure it out as we go along. And there'll be another GSWD point up for grabs. And
Can we do baseball next week?
we'll figure it out, man. And
Why? There's not going to be a season.
until then, I'm your hostess, Cupcake the Riddler.
I'm Mark. No, thank you.
Got a pistol.
Dimple Chin Massey.
I'm the Master Chris Massey.
And I'm the Red Baron, who is also a rat.